What if the past we know is only a fraction of the truth? Hidden in tombs, deserts, and forgotten temples lie mysteries that even scientists struggle to explain. Golden teeth skulls, mummified falcons, and instruments that played music thousands of years ago. Tonight, we'll explore the stories that refuse to be forgotten, the artifacts that whisper secrets older than history itself. Some are sacred, some are eerie, all are extraordinary. Before we begin, tell me, where are you watching from, and what time is it there? And if you're ready to uncover the untold, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss what comes next. The mysterious skull with golden inlay. Buried beneath layers of soil and silence, the mysterious skull with golden inlay offers a glimpse into a world where art, ritual, and reverence for the dead intertwined in ways that still baffle archaeologists today. Found in a long-forgotten tomb, this skull is not merely a human remains, it is a statement, a symbol, and a puzzle carved in bone and gold. The skull itself is well preserved, with smooth, bleached surfaces that reveal centuries of careful burial. But what sets it apart, what draws immediate fascination, is the intricate gold inlay that traces along the sutures, around the eye sockets, and along the jawline. Thin sheets of gold, hammered and meticulously fitted into grooves, give the impression that the dead were not just buried, but honored, transformed into objects of beauty and power. Imagine the hands that created this, an artisan, long ago, selecting the right tools, carefully cutting into the fragile bone, and embedding gold with precision. Each line is deliberate, each pattern intentional. There is no rush, no careless hammering. This was an act of devotion, a ceremonial gesture designed to communicate status, spirituality, or connection with the divine. Some scholars suggest the golden inlay served a symbolic purpose. Gold has long been associated with immortality, divinity, and light. To affix it to a skull may have been to preserve the essence of the person, to protect their spirit, or to elevate them to a semi-divine status. Perhaps this was a ruler, a priest, or someone whose power was meant to persist beyond death, their presence immortalized through precious metal and enduring craftsmanship. The discovery of the skull sent ripples through archaeological communities. Its precision, artistry, and preservation defied expectations. Not only did it challenge assumptions about burial practices, but it also raised questions about the societies that produced it. Were golden inlays common in the region, now lost to time? Was this skull a singular ceremonial masterpiece, or part of a broader tradition that has vanished? Walking through the tomb in your mind, you might see the skull resting carefully on a bed of textiles, surrounded by remnants of offerings, pottery, small tools, or ornaments placed with care. The atmosphere is quiet, sacred, and deliberate, as though those who prepared it intended the burial to bridge the living world and whatever lay beyond. The craftsmanship is astonishing. Gold is malleable yet unforgiving. Embedding it into human bone without cracking or damaging the delicate material requires extraordinary skill. Patterns were carefully chosen, some geometric, some symbolic, some perhaps holding meanings we may never fully decode. Every line, groove, and curve speaks of a culture capable of sophisticated artistry and profound respect for those who had passed. Archaeologists have debated the origin and purpose of such skulls. Some suggest they were part of elite burials reserved for kings or spiritual leaders. Others propose they were ritualistic, tied to ceremonies of ancestor worship, or meant to act as spiritual vessels. Whatever the answer, the skill, intention, and symbolism are undeniable. The skull also invites contemplation about mortality and memory. By adorning the dead with gold, the living may have sought to defy time, to assert permanence where decay is inevitable. There is a poetic quality to it, gold, eternal, and unyielding, fused with the transient, fragile nature of human remains. The result is both haunting and beautiful, a reminder that even in death, humans have sought to leave a lasting impression on the world. Consider the scene in the ancient workshop, an artisan carefully working by torchlight, inserting gold into grooves with precision, taking time, perhaps meditating, honoring the individual who will wear this adornment in the afterlife. Each strike, each movement, echoes centuries later when the skull is finally uncovered, surprising modern observers with its skill and intention. The mysterious skull with golden inlay also challenges assumptions about the materials, trade, and technology of its time. Gold had to be sourced, transported, and manipulated. The skill required to embed it into bone suggests not only artistry but access to specialized tools and knowledge. It speaks to a society that understood materials deeply and placed immense value on symbolic and ceremonial practice. Even now, as the skull rests in museum collections or study archives, its gaze seems to carry a weight that transcends centuries. The inlaid gold catches the light, glimmers subtly, and reminds viewers of the humanity, intention, and cultural depth of the people who created it. Scholars may study it, but the skull continues to inspire awe, curiosity, and speculation about what ancient societies valued, feared, and revered. Walking through the imagined tombs, seeing the skull in situ, one can sense the care, precision, and belief that went into its creation. This was more than decoration. It was a bridge between life and death, between human hands and the divine. It is a testament to artistry, devotion, and the human desire to preserve memory beyond mortality. The skull also raises questions modern science struggles to answer. Who was the individual beneath the gold? What role did they play in their society? What beliefs drove this extraordinary burial practice? Every answer opens another question. Every discovery deepens the mystery, reminding us that history is far richer, stranger, and more intricate than what we see in textbooks. The mysterious skull with golden inlay remains one of archaeology's most compelling enigmas. It embodies beauty, ritual, and mystery, inviting us to imagine worlds where death was honored through art, where the line between life and afterlife was marked with gold, and where human skill and reverence reached astonishing heights. Even centuries later, when you picture it resting beneath layers of earth, glinting faintly in torchlight, you can sense its power. It is both a relic and a story, an artifact and a question, and in the quiet, thoughtful observation of it, we are reminded that history still whispers in gold, in bone, and in the hands of those who once lived, crafted, and believed. The jade burial suit of Liu Sheng. There are discoveries that change how we think of the past, and then there are discoveries that feel like whispers from another world altogether. The jade burial suit of Liu Sheng belongs to the second kind, strange, beautiful, fragile, and almost impossible to believe. Let's begin slowly. Imagine a quiet hillside in northern China. The year is 1968. Workers, clearing earth for a factory, stumble across stones, carvings, passages. Archaeologists are called in, brushes and chisels in hand. As they move deeper, a tomb is revealed. Inside lies not just a coffin, but a vision of eternity, a body wrapped in jade. Liu Sheng was no ordinary man. He was a prince of the Han dynasty, living more than 2,000 years ago. His life, like that of many nobles, was wrapped in luxury, but also in ritual and fear. Death, to the Han, was not the end. It was a doorway, and a doorway required preparation, so his body was placed inside a suit, not of silk, not of armor, but of stone. Nearly 2,500 small jade plaques, cut and polished, each drilled with tiny holes, each connected by shining gold thread. Piece by piece, the artisans shaped it to his body, a jade mask for the face, jade gloves for the hands, jade shoes for the feet, every curve of the body covered in green stone. Stop for a moment and picture it, the weight of it, heavy yet delicate, thousands of tiles shimmering in the dim torchlight of the tomb, each tile catching a trace of light, glowing faintly like drops of frozen water. The prince's form transformed into a mosaic of stone, a second skin, a silent promise. Why jade? To us it might seem impractical. Jade is cold, hard, unyielding. But to the Han dynasty, jade was life itself. It was purity. It was the essence of heaven and earth. It was believed to protect the body from decay, to guard the soul from evil. Some believed it might even grant immortality. To bury a body in jade was not just to honor it, it was to try to hold it intact forever. In Chinese thought, jade was never just a gem. It was a symbol of virtue, courage, wisdom, and eternity. To wear jade in life meant refinement. To wear jade in death meant transformation. And so Liu Sheng's attendants cut, polished, and sewed stone, hoping their prince would cross into the afterlife as something more than mortal. The suit itself tells a story of rank. Only the highest nobles were given such garments. Gold thread was reserved for princes and kings, silver thread for lower aristocrats, bronze for others, silk for the least of the privileged. Even in death, hierarchy remained. Liu Sheng's gold-threaded suit declared who he was, even to the spirits beyond. Now, imagine the tomb itself, carved into a hillside, its chambers filled with treasures, bronze vessels lined with green patina, lamps shaped like mythical beasts, carvings of stone, precious objects placed carefully around the body, as if to provide comfort in the other world. Wine vessels, mirrors, ornaments, each chosen with care, each a part of a ritual thousands of years old, and at the heart of it all, the jade suit. For centuries, the tomb lay sealed. Outside, dynasties rose and fell. Wars came and went. Entire cities were born and erased. Yet underground, the prince remained, silent, his jade suit resting patiently in the dark. Dust gathered, silence thickened, no one entered, no one knew. Until by chance, in the 20th century, the tomb gave itself back to the world. When archaeologists first looked upon the jade suit, they must have felt a strange awe. It wasn't just an artifact. It was a body turned into stone, a human being reshaped by belief. Some saw it as a miracle of craftsmanship, others as a futile attempt to cheat nature, but all agreed it was unlike anything they had ever seen. There is something haunting in the thought. Lu Sheng's body, once flesh and bone, dissolved centuries ago. Yet his presence remains, held together by jade. He is both gone and here, both man and mosaic. The suit preserved not his flesh, but his memory, and in that sense, perhaps it succeeded. Because tonight, more than 2,000 years later, we still speak his name. Other jade suits have been found, but none quite as complete, none quite as breathtaking. His and his wife's tombs revealed twin wonders, two people, wrapped for eternity in stone. Each tile, each thread, each seam a message from the past. We did not want to be forgotten. Think of the labor involved. Each tile cut from raw jade, a stone harder than steel, ancient craftsmen drilling holes with primitive tools, polishing the edges, measuring angles, thousands of pieces, no two exactly the same, each fitted into place. It was more than a project. It was devotion, almost an act of worship. And think of the faith required, to believe that stone could hold off death, that jade could stand guard at the edge of the afterlife, that gold thread could bind not only the pieces of a suit, but the fragments of a soul. But jade was not only a shield, it was a bridge. The Han saw it as a substance connecting heaven and earth. To lie in jade was to lie in the very material of the cosmos. Perhaps they thought the body would not decay, but instead merge into eternity, like jade itself, unyielding, everlasting. Of course, jade could not stop time. When the tomb was opened, the body within was gone, only fragments of bone remained. Yet the suit endured, gleaming softly after 2,000 years in darkness. The promise may have failed, but the memory survived. And maybe in the end, that is enough. Because immortality does not always mean living forever. Sometimes it means being remembered. Sometimes it means a name spoken across centuries, a story carried into the future. Lu Sheng may not have walked into eternity, but his jade suit carried him here, to us, tonight. So as you picture it, the prince, asleep in his stone skin, waiting quietly through centuries of silence, let yourself drift into the rhythm of time. The earth turns, dynasties rise and fall, and still, in the shadows of history, jade glimmers softly, whispering that life and death are never as simple as we think. The forgotten statues of Ugarit. There are places on earth where history doesn't just sleep beneath the soil, it whispers, waiting for someone to listen. One of those places lies on the coast of modern-day Syria, in a city that once shone brightly in the Bronze Age. Its name was Ugarit. For centuries, Ugarit was forgotten, buried by time, hidden under layers of earth, its very name lost to memory. And then, in the early 20th century, chance unearthed it once again. Farmers, plowing their fields, struck stones, fragments, tablets. Archaeologists soon arrived, and what they uncovered was more than a city. It was a window into a world long erased. Among the treasures of Ugarit, the most haunting are its statues. Carved thousands of years ago, they stand frozen, guardians, deities, ancestors, symbols of power and faith. And yet, they feel strangely unfinished, forgotten, half hidden in museum corners, overshadowed by louder discoveries from Egypt, Mesopotamia, and Greece. But here's the strange truth. The statues of Ugarit whisper a story every bit as mysterious, every bit as profound, as the great civilizations we think we know. Picture Ugarit in its prime. Around 3,000 years ago, this was a thriving port city on the Mediterranean. Its ships carried cedar wood, copper, ivory, wine, and oil across the seas. Merchants from Cyprus, Egypt, Anatolia, and Mesopotamia passed through its harbors. Its palaces were decorated with colorful frescoes, its libraries filled with clay tablets. Ugarit was a crossroad of cultures, a place where languages and traditions intertwined. In its temples, statues watched silently. Some were carved from limestone, others from basalt. Some were human-like, others strange, hybrid forms of man and animal. They represented gods: Baal, the stormbringer; El, the ancient father of the heavens; Asherah, the mother goddess; Anat, fierce and untamed. But unlike the grand, polished statues of Greece or the monumental carvings of Egypt, the Ugaritic statues are rougher, more modest. Their faces are often blank, their bodies simplified. Some seem eroded, others almost abstract, as if they were never meant to be perfect likenesses but vessels, shapes through which divine presence could flow. The mystery is not just in their form, but in their fate. When Ugarit fell, suddenly, violently, around 1200 BCE, during the great collapse that swept across the Bronze Age world, its statues were left behind. Temples were burned, palaces crumbled, the people scattered or perished, and the statues, once sacred, became debris. Today, when we look at them, they feel abandoned. Gods without worshippers, guardians without doors to guard, fragments of a faith no one remembers in full, their meanings half erased, their stories only hinted at in tablets written in a language that took decades to decipher. The Ugaritic script itself, an alphabet, one of the earliest known, was lost until those clay tablets were found in the 20th century, and with its rediscovery, we learned of the myths, the rituals, the prayers once spoken before these statues. We learned that Baal fought Yam, the sea, in a battle for cosmic order. We learned of gods who loved, who warred, who demanded offerings, and suddenly these mute statues were given back their voices, faintly, across millennia. Imagine walking through the ruins of Ugarit today. The stone walls barely rise above the earth. Grass grows where palaces once stood. The sound of the sea drifts across the air, the same sea that carried ships of traders thousands of years ago. In the local museum, the statues stand quietly, their features worn but their presence undeniable. Stand before one long enough, and you might feel the weight of the people who once stood there too. Farmers, kneeling with grain in their hands. Priests, chanting under the glow of oil lamps. Children, staring up in wonder, learning the names of gods that no one speaks today. And yet, as much as we have uncovered, so much is still missing. Who carved these statues? What ceremonies were performed before them? What did their blank faces mean? Anonymity, universality, or simply erosion by time? Did the people of Ugarit abandon them in fear when the city burned, or did they believe their gods had abandoned them first? There is a sadness in forgotten statues. Unlike texts which can be translated, or artifacts which can be catalogued, statues are about presence. They are about being seen. When they are forgotten, it feels as if the gods themselves have been silenced. But perhaps by looking at them now, we return a little of that presence. Perhaps by speaking of them, by remembering Ugarit, we breathe some life back into their stone. The fall of Ugarit was part of something larger, the collapse of the Bronze Age. Across the Mediterranean, cities burned, trade networks vanished, writing systems disappeared, whole kingdoms crumbled into silence. For centuries afterward, much of that world lay in darkness, and in that darkness, the statues waited. When they were dug up, covered in soil, their shapes barely visible, they seemed less like art and more like ghosts. Ghosts of a city that once linked worlds. Ghosts of people whose voices were carried away by fire and time. And still, they endure. Rough, worn, silent, forgotten by many, but not gone. So tonight, when you think of Ugarit, think not just of ruins and clay tablets, but of the statues. Think of stone faces staring across centuries, once bright with ritual, now quiet in museum halls. Think of gods who once ruled the storms and seas, now reduced to cracked limestone and basalt fragments. And think of how fragile memory is, how even the greatest cities can vanish, leaving only a handful of forgotten statues to remind us they ever existed at all. Because sometimes it is not the most perfect artifacts that matter most. Sometimes it is the broken, the overlooked, the forgotten, those silent witnesses that tell us the deepest truths. And so, the statues of Ugarit remain, not in glory, not in triumph, but in silence. A silence that still speaks, if only you are willing to listen. The wooden lions of Urartu. In the highlands where mountains fold into one another like the waves of a frozen sea, there once rose a kingdom, now spoken of only in fragments, Urartu. The name itself feels heavy, almost lost in the echoes of history, yet in its time, it was fierce, proud, and powerful, a rival to mighty Assyria. Most who hear of Urartu imagine stone walls, bronze shields, inscriptions carved deep into cliffs. But in the shadows of its ruins, in rare and fragile remnants, lies something different, something that should never have survived the centuries, and yet somehow did. The wooden lions. Not lions carved in stone, not lions hammered in bronze, but lions shaped from wood, a material so delicate that time usually swallows it whole. Yet here, against all odds, a few have endured. And so we ask, why would a kingdom of warriors and stonemasons craft lions out of wood? Why did these fragile forms matter enough to carve, to guard, to preserve? Imagine the Urartian world. Around 800 BCE, their fortresses rose from the mountains like jagged teeth. Lake Van shimmered in the heart of their realm, its waters reflecting stone citadels. Soldiers stood watch on battlements. Priests poured libations to the god Haldi, their warlike protector. Merchants carried goods along the Silk Road's earliest veins, and within these halls, lions waited. Guardians, symbols, companions of kings. In the world of Urartu, lions were not animals of flesh and bone. They were more embodiments of power, of cosmic order, of the ruler's authority. To see a lion was to see majesty. To touch one was to brush against strength itself. Now think of this. Carving a lion in wood. Wood bends, splinters, cracks. It burns, it rots, it vanishes in the soil. It is temporary. And yet these lions were given shape in it. Was it ritual? Was it meant to be placed in tombs, near the dead? Or perhaps inside temples, close to fire, incense, and chanting? What survives of these lions is small, fragmentary, but still, they whisper. Carved with careful detail, their manes flow, their jaws part as if mid-roar, their paws grip the unseen ground. They are not crude toys or decorations, they are guardians, fierce even in silence. Picture 1. A lion small enough to cradle in your hands, but so alive in its posture that you feel it could leap. The wood, darkened by age, cracked by centuries, yet still holding its form. Archaeologists, when they uncovered such pieces, must have stared in disbelief. For wood this old should not exist, yet here it was, sleeping in the earth for over 2.5 millennia. Every scratch of the carving tool still visible, every curve of the mane a deliberate stroke. This was not the work of haste, but of devotion. A craftsman somewhere in Araru bent over this piece, shaping it with care, knowing it might rest in a king's chamber or guard the threshold of a shrine. And here's something else. In Araru, lions were often placed beside thrones, sometimes as statues, sometimes in pairs flanking doorways. Imagine a wooden lion standing not alone, but in symmetry with another. 2 eyes, 4 paws, facing outward, guardians in eternal vigil. But why wood? Bronze could last, stone could endure, yet wood was chosen. Perhaps it was for the intimacy. Stone and bronze are cold, unyielding. Wood breathes. It carries warmth. It feels alive. A wooden lion could be held, carried, placed close to the body. Maybe it was meant for rituals where touch mattered, where the priest's hands moved over the lion's surface as prayers were spoken. And think, too, of fire. In many ancient rituals, offerings were burned. Was wood chosen because it could return to smoke, to air, to spirit? Did some wooden lions end not in preservation, but in flames, their essence offered to the gods? We cannot know, but in the few that remain, preserved by luck and earth, we see a glimpse of this hidden side of Urartu, the tender, fragile, human side of a kingdom, remembered mostly for its walls and wars. Imagine, then, the workshop. A room filled with the smell of sawdust and resin, the sound of tools scraping, light filtering through slits in the stone walls. A craftsman, perhaps young, perhaps old, hunched over a block of wood, his hands steady, his breath slow. He carves the mane first, curls flowing outward, then the eyes, wide alive, the mouth, slightly parted, as though growling at something unseen. To him, this is not just wood, this is transformation. A block of tree becoming a lion, a protector, a spirit. He does not know that centuries later, his work will lie buried, then uncovered by strangers, who will speak another tongue. He only knows the weight of the tool in his hand, the rhythm of carving, the presence of the lion taking form. The Urartians themselves are almost forgotten. Their kingdom fell to the Assyrians, then to others. Their language faded, their gods silenced, their fortresses ruined. But their lions remain, not the roaring beasts of the wild, but quiet, wooden guardians, proof that even fragile things can survive if the earth wills it. And maybe that's the deeper mystery. These lions remind us that history is not just about what survives easily, the stones, the metals, the monuments. It is also about what should not survive, and yet somehow does. A whisper instead of a shout, a flicker instead of a blaze. The wooden lions of Urartu are like memory itself, fragile, fleeting, yet stubbornly persistent. They tell us that even in a world of empires and armies, someone cared enough to carve with patience, to create with meaning, to leave behind something small, warm, and alive. And so, as you picture them now, the cracked wood, the flowing mane, the watchful eyes, let the lions of Urartu guard you too. Silent, eternal, their presence carried across 3,000 years, their meaning never fully explained. They are both simple and profound, both fragile and unbreakable, wooden lions, waiting in the shadows of history, the salt caves of Hallstatt burials. In the mountains of Austria, where the air turns thin and the slopes plunge steeply into lakes of silver blue, there is a village whose story stretches further back than almost any other in Europe, Hallstatt. Today, it is a picture of beauty. Timber houses perched against cliffs, the reflection of spires in calm waters. But beneath its peaceful face lies something older, something that smells of earth and minerals, something buried in salt. For more than 3,000 years, people dug deep into the mountain here, chasing veins of salt hidden in darkness. To us, salt is ordinary, just grains on a table. But to them, it was life itself, a treasure that preserved meat, healed wounds, and flavored food in a world before refrigeration. Salt was white gold, and in Hallstatt, the mountains offered it in abundance. And in those caves, deep within tunnels carved by hand, and lit only by the dim flicker of oil lamps, people did more than just mine. They also buried their dead. Yes, in the very earth where salt clung to walls and crystals glittered faintly in the dark, the bodies of the departed were laid to rest. Their bones, their clothes, their hair, sealed by salt, preserved by time. Imagine a miner's hand brushing against something unexpected in the soil. Not stone, not wood, but the curve of a skull, the outline of a woven fabric still clinging to it. A discovery impossible almost anywhere else. Yet here, the salt kept things intact for thousands of years. The burials of Hallstatt speak of a community that lived with the mountain as both provider and guardian. The salt sustained them in life, and in death, it embraced them. Salt dried their flesh, preserved their bones, even froze fragments of their last moments. When archaeologists first entered the salt caves of Hallstatt, they were astonished. They found not only tools and pottery, but remnants of people, miners who had worked, suffered, and sometimes died in the shafts. They found hair still braided, shoes still stitched, clothing still colored. Normally, centuries reduce such things to dust, but here, in the cradle of salt, they remained. The Hallstatt burials are not grand tombs with gold and marble. They are humbler, yet no less powerful. Some were likely accidents, miners crushed by collapse, sealed forever where they fell. Others were intentional, placed carefully into the earth, offerings to gods of stone and mineral, or to ancestors who labored before them. Salt did not just preserve bodies, it preserved stories. Tools of bronze, wooden ladders worn smooth by hands, ropes still twisted tight, the fingerprints of daily life, frozen in time. And when we step back, we realize this is one of the oldest industrial sites in the world. Centuries before Rome, before Athens, people here were already tunneling, trading, carrying salt across mountains. And beneath all that labor they buried their dead. A civilization carved into rock and memory. Picture the silence inside the cave. The air heavy, cool, tinged with minerals. A torch sputters. The walls glisten faintly with crystals. And then, a body, curled into stillness. A child, perhaps, wrapped in cloth. Or an adult, tools still near their side. The salt closes in around them, layer after layer, until centuries blur. To touch such a body today is to break a silence that lasted longer than nations, longer than dynasties. To see hair that last grew in the Iron Age. To see clothes woven by hands long gone. It feels almost intrusive, and yet, it connects us to them in a way stone statues never could. The Hallstatt burials also carry mystery. Were these purely accidental deaths, or deliberate rites? Was salt seen as sacred, not only wealth, but a passage between life and afterlife? Some scholars believe these burials were intentional, an offering of bodies to the mountain itself. Others think they were tragedies, miners lost in darkness. Both may be true. For the people of Hallstatt, the line between work, ritual, and survival was thin. Salt was wealth, but it was also life. To enter the mountain was to step into a sacred heart, where earth revealed its treasure but demanded respect in return. And here's something haunting. Salt does not only preserve bodies, it preserves their expressions. Some faces, when found, still showed traces of the features they once wore. Lips dried, eyes collapsed, yet a sense of humanity remained. To gaze on them was to meet someone who walked the earth almost 3,000 years ago. Hallstatt gave its name to an entire era of European prehistory, the Hallstatt culture of the early Iron Age. A culture of warriors, traders, and miners who spread across the continent. And it all began here, in these salt mountains, in the narrow tunnels where bodies sometimes found their final rest. Even today, salt is still mined in Hallstatt. But when the villagers descend, they walk the same paths their ancestors did, where bones once lay, where tools once fell, where life and death mingled in the glitter of white crystals. The salt caves remind us of something simple and profound, that history is not always written in marble halls or golden tombs. Sometimes it is written in the ordinary, the sweat of miners, the grain of wood in a ladder, the preserved braid of a child's hair. Sometimes it is written in salt. And so, as you picture the caves now, the darkness, the glitter, the silence broken only by the faint drip of water, imagine those who lived, worked and died there. Their bodies resting in the mineral embrace of the mountain, their stories sealed until the earth was ready to give them back. The Hallstatt burials are not just graves, they are whispers of endurance, lives lived in the shadows of salt, preserved not for glory, but for truth. And tonight, across thousands of years, they still watch us from the quiet dark of the mountain. The vulture shrines of Göbekli Tepe. On a barren hill in southeastern Turkey, long before pyramids rose, before Stonehenge stood, before writing or wheels or bronze, people gathered to build something astonishing. A circle of stone pillars, carved and arranged with impossible skill, 12,000 years ago, Göbekli Tepe. This place is often called the world's first temple, a sanctuary of hunters and gatherers who somehow, in an age before farming, lifted and shaped stones that weighed as much as elephants. And among the carvings that cover these stones, foxes, snakes, boars, scorpions, One image returns again and again, the vulture. Tall birds, wings outstretched, their shapes etched into limestone, sometimes alone, sometimes with human forms beneath them, sometimes carrying heads, or standing over bodies. Why vultures? Why would the builders of Göbekli Tepe, people who lived so close to the edge of survival, choose this bird of death as one of their sacred images? Imagine the hill as it was 12 millennia ago, a dry plateau above the Mesopotamian plain. Hunters arrive, carrying stone tools, dragging animal hides, baskets of flint. They gather not for shelter, not for crops, but for ritual, for something larger than life. They set up great pillars in circles, some in the shape of T's, others with arms and belts carved onto them, like giant human forms. Around these, animals swarm in carvings, wild, dangerous, untamed, and above them vultures watch. The vulture has always been a bird of endings. It does not kill, but it waits. It circles, it descends, it feeds on what is already gone. To some cultures, vultures were unclean. To others, they were sacred, carrying souls to the heavens. And at Göbekli Tepe, their presence was deliberate, carved deep into the stone for all who entered to see. Some archaeologists believe the vulture shrines were part of a death ritual, that when someone died, their body was not buried immediately, but placed on the surface, exposed to the open air, to the birds, the flesh taken away, the bones left clean, a practice known as excarnation, or sky burial. In this way, death was not hidden underground. It was a passage, a transformation, the body rising piece by piece into the sky, carried by wings. And so the vultures at Göbekli Tepe may not be symbols of horror, but of journey, guardians of the soul's ascent. Imagine the scene. A group gathers at the hill. A body lies on a platform of stone or wood. Around it, chants rise, hands lift toward the sky. Overhead, vultures circle. Hours, maybe days pass. And then, the descent. The birds land, wings beating, heads lowering, and slowly the body disappears into them. For the people of Göbekli Tepe, this was not desecration, it was sacred. It was the moment the human returned to the sky, freed from the weight of flesh, and the vultures were the messengers. The carvings show more. On one pillar, a vulture spreads its wings over a headless human figure. A head floats nearby, separated. To us it seems violent. To them perhaps it was holy. The removal of the head may have been symbolic, the soul leaving the body, the self carried upward. In other carvings, vultures stand beside abstract shapes, perhaps representing the sun or the afterlife. Always, they are present where death and life meet. Göbekli Tepe was not a village. No one lived there permanently. It was a place to gather, to remember, to perform rituals that bound scattered groups together, and the vulture shrines may have been at its heart. What's striking is how much effort went into this. Pillars weighing tons dragged from quarries, lifted upright, carved with precision, all for ritual, for belief, for the mysteries of death and rebirth. This was before pottery, before writing, before organized farming. Yet these people chose to spend their strength not only on survival, but on stone sanctuaries filled with images of vultures and spirits. It suggests that before humans learned to grow wheat, they learned to pray. Before they learned to build villages, they built temples, and death was their first mystery. Picture standing in one of those circles. The pillars loom, taller than any person, their surfaces alive with animals, snakes coiling, foxes prowling, cranes stretching their necks, and above you, vultures carved into the stone, wings open, watching. The air smells of dust, of fire from a ritual hearth. You hear the low chant of voices. In the center, perhaps an offering, a skull, a body, or a feast for the spirits. And in every direction, the carved vultures remind you, life ends, but something rises beyond. When Göbekli Tepe was finished, when its rituals faded, something strange happened. The people buried it. They filled in the circles with earth and rubble, sealing them completely, as if to protect them, or to hide them, or to close a chapter. For thousands of years, the vultures of stone slept in darkness, unseen, until the late 20th century, when archaeologists unearthed them again, and the hill revealed its secret. Even now, we do not know the full meaning. Were the vultures guides of souls? Were they guardians of the dead? Or were they reminders that death was not an end, but a transformation? What we do know is this. 12,000 years ago, people came together on a lonely hill and carved their beliefs into stone. They left us not words but images, and among them, the vulture stands out. Fierce, patient, eternal. The vulture shrines of Göbekli Tepe are more than carvings. They are messages from the dawn of belief itself. They whisper across millennia, about death, about sky, about journeys unseen. They tell us that even in the earliest days of humanity, people sought to make sense of endings, and they found their answer in the wings of a bird that feeds on silence. And tonight, When you think of those pillars standing under ancient stars, imagine the vultures carved into them, waiting, watching, guiding, guardians of the oldest temple we know, the painted ostrich eggs of Nubia. Far to the south of Egypt, along the banks of the Nile, where the desert bends into gold and stone, there once lived a people who left behind one of the strangest, most delicate mysteries of the ancient world. Not towering pyramids, not stone temples, but fragile shells from the eggs of ostriches, painted with colors that have somehow survived the millennia. The painted ostrich eggs of Nubia. At first, it sounds almost simple. An egg, an object we see every day. But in Nubia, thousands of years ago, an egg was not just food. It was a treasure, a symbol, a canvas for the sacred. Imagine yourself standing in the dry heat of Nubia. The Nile runs like a silver ribbon in the distance, feeding a thin line of green through a desert that stretches forever. And on the horizon you see them, ostriches, tall and strange, their shadows long on the sand, their eggs hidden in the dust. To the people of Nubia, the ostrich was not an ordinary bird, it was power and mystery in motion. Its eggs, enormous, white, smooth, were like jewels fallen from the sun. To hold one was to hold a symbol of creation itself. But they did not leave the eggs plain, they painted them. Delicate patterns of spirals and dots, lines of red ochre, black pigment, yellow strokes, tiny symbols carved or painted across the fragile surface. Some eggs were found buried with the dead, placed beside bodies, as if to carry something into the afterlife. Some were traded far away, carried across deserts and seas, ending up in tombs in Greece, Mesopotamia, even Italy. And each one asks the same question: why did they matter so much? Think of an egg. Inside it life waits, unseen, a creature unborn, hidden in the shell, waiting for the right moment. Across cultures, the egg has always been a symbol of creation, of beginnings, of eternity. And for the Nubians, perhaps it was the same. A painted egg could be a gift to the gods, a promise of new life for the dead, or a talisman of fertility, held in ceremonies when rains were late, when the desert was harsh, when survival balanced on hope. Picture a Nubian craftsman thousands of years ago. He sits in the shade of a reed hut, holding an ostrich egg in his hands. Its shell is smooth, fragile, and he knows that one mistake will shatter it. With a brush made of reed fibers dipped in pigment ground from stone, he begins to paint. A spiral, turning inward, as if to show the path of life itself. A line of dots, maybe stars, maybe footsteps. A band of red, the color of blood, of life, of power. When he finishes, the egg glows with meaning, more than decoration. It has become a story in miniature, told on a shell. Now imagine the night, a burial taking place in the desert. The body is laid in a shallow grave, wrapped in linen. At the side, a painted ostrich egg is placed, fragile yet eternal. The mourners cover it with sand, believing that when the soul awakens in another world, the egg will hatch into new life. But the mystery deepens. These eggs were not only sacred in Nubia. Archaeologists have found painted ostrich eggs across the Mediterranean, in places far from where ostriches ever lived. How did they travel? Why were they desired so much? One theory is trade. Nubians, skilled hunters of ostriches, would take the eggs, paint them, and carry them north along trade routes. Egyptians, Greeks, and Romans saw them as exotic treasures, proof of wealth, of connection to faraway lands. But perhaps it was more. Perhaps everyone who saw an ostrich egg felt the same strange pull. The egg is not just fragile, it is eternal. It can be emptied, and yet endure. It can be painted, and yet remain itself. It is a vessel, both hollow and full of possibility. For the Nubians, who lived in a land of extremes where the Nile gave life but the desert always threatened to take it back, maybe the egg was a promise, a reminder that even in the harshest place, life could begin again. And so, in graves, in temples, in homes, the painted eggs appeared. Some show animals, some show geometric designs, others are simpler, almost abstract, and yet all carry the same silent weight, that life, like the egg, is fragile but sacred. Close your eyes and picture it. The desert wind moving through the dunes, a Nubian woman carrying an egg carefully in both hands. She places it beside her sleeping child, not for food, but as a charm for protection. She whispers to it, as if it holds a spirit. Another scene. A warrior sets out on a journey. His family gives him a painted egg to carry, light in weight, but heavy with meaning. If he does not return, the egg may return in his place, placed at his burial, carrying his spirit home. And then, across time, centuries later, the egg is unearthed by archaeologists. The paint is faded, but still there. And suddenly, we glimpse a moment of faith, of hope, of mystery from thousands of years ago. What is most astonishing is their survival. These eggs, so fragile, should have shattered long ago, yet some remain, whole and decorated. their shells carrying whispers from the ancient past. We may never know the full truth of their meaning. Were they symbols of rebirth? Were they gifts of prestige? Were they offerings to gods we no longer remember? What we do know is this. Across time and culture, the ostrich egg has been more than an object. It has been a mirror of the human need to believe in beginnings, to find hope in fragility, to carry beauty into death. The painted ostrich eggs of Nubia remind us of something gentle but powerful, that even the smallest, most delicate things can carry the heaviest meaning, that sometimes it is not the monuments of stone, but the fragile shells of belief that last the longest. And tonight, as you drift toward sleep, imagine one of those eggs in your hand, cool, smooth, painted with spirals and stars, a vessel of silence, of mystery, of rebirth, and in its stillness, it carries the voices of a people long gone, whispering that life is fragile, but it always begins again. The golden sun bird of Jinsha. High in the hills of Sichuan, China, near the rushing waters of the Min River, there was a city once alive with a civilization almost forgotten. Over 3,000 years ago, people here lived, worshipped, and built treasures that time would try, and sometimes fail, to hide. Among their most dazzling creations is a small golden artifact, delicate yet powerful, the golden sun bird of Jinsha. At first glance, it is tiny, a medallion no larger than the palm of a hand. But the craftsmanship is extraordinary. Made of thin sheets of gold, cut and molded into a bird with outstretched wings, surrounded by 4 curling arcs that seem to radiate like the sun. The design is mesmerizing, simple yet sophisticated, abstract yet alive. But its importance is far more than decorative. To the people of Jinsha, this bird was a symbol of the sun itself, of life, of renewal, and of connection between heaven and earth. It was a spiritual emblem, a talisman that carried their beliefs, their hopes, and their reverence for the forces that ruled their lives. Imagine the city as it once stood. Houses built of timber, streets paved with stones, markets filled with the scent of grain and smoke. People worked the land, fished the rivers, and carved gold with meticulous care. Somewhere, a craftsman sits, hammering a thin sheet of gold into shape. His hands are steady, each stroke counts. One mistake could ruin the sacred design. And yet, with patience and devotion, he brings the sunbird to life. It is not just an object of beauty, it is a message, encoded in gold. 4 rays of light, curling outward, seem to pulse with movement. The bird is not still, it is alive, rising, circling, soaring toward the heavens. But the story of the Jinsha civilization is not entirely peaceful. History here is fragmented. We know from excavation that the city was abandoned, almost mysteriously, leaving behind treasures like the sunbird buried in the earth. Layers of ash and soil concealed it for centuries, preserving it for the eyes of future generations. When archaeologists uncovered it in the early 21st century, they were astonished. The level of sophistication in metallurgy, the abstract yet expressive design, the symbolism, it was beyond what they had expected for a culture thought to be primitive or isolated. Yet here it was, proof that Jinsha was advanced, spiritual, and artistically brilliant. The golden sunbird is also a story of human fascination with the heavens. Long before telescopes or scientific instruments, people observed the sun, the movement of the stars, the cycles of seasons. They translated what they saw into art, into belief, into ritual. The bird, with its wings spread wide and rays radiating, seems to capture the sun's energy. It embodies flight, light, and divinity. Perhaps it was used in ceremonies, held aloft during festivals to honor the sun, or placed as an offering in sacred spaces, bridging the earthly and celestial realms. Think of holding it now. Its weight is almost nothing, but its presence is immense. A symbol of light, in a world of uncertainty. The artisans of Jinsha understood that life was fragile, but gold endures, and so they turned sunlight into metal, a tangible representation of what guides us, nourishes us, and reminds us that even in darkness, there is brilliance. The golden sunbird also hints at connections we may never fully understand. Similar sun motifs appear across ancient Asia, from Shang bronzes in northern China to Tibetan ritual symbols. Was Jinsha influenced by distant cultures, or was it an independent expression of a universal human fascination with the sun? Perhaps we will never know. Now imagine the bird resting in its burial site. Earth pressed close, untouched for centuries. The soil is dry, the humidity low, preserving the delicate shape. Nobody comes to admire it, no trader or traveler, only the passage of seasons. The bird waits in quietude, silent but alive with meaning. Then millennia later, the ground is disturbed. Archaeologists, carefully brushing away centuries of dirt, reveal the sunbird's curves. Light strikes the gold, and suddenly it glows, catching the eye and imagination alike. It is a reminder that even objects no larger than a hand can carry the weight of history. What strikes many is how much the sunbird captures movement and life in a static form. The wings seem ready to flap, the arcs ready to spin. It is not merely a decoration, but a story, a frozen moment of devotion, an embodiment of a worldview now mostly lost. And yet we still feel it. In its lines we sense the people who made it, their dedication, their spirituality, their vision. A message across time, that life is luminous, fleeting, and sacred. The Jinsha civilization left more than gold. They left pottery, jade, tools, and the foundations of a society that understood beauty and symbol. But it is the golden sunbird that captures the imagination. Tiny, fragile, eternal, it is a bridge to a world that has vanished, yet speaks to us as clearly as the sun itself. To touch its story, to imagine the hands that shaped it, the skies that inspired it, is to walk through history in a quiet, profound way. And it reminds us that some treasures, though small, carry the weight of civilizations. Even today, the sunbird sits in museum display, but it is more than a display. It is a message. Humanity has always sought to understand the cosmos, to capture light, to honor life. And sometimes the smallest object, a golden bird no larger than your palm, can contain all of that. And tonight, as we ponder the golden sunbird, think of light stretching across millennia, of artisans who labored with care, of civilizations that rise and fall, leaving whispers behind. The Jinsha sunbird reminds us that even in objects seemingly small or fragile, history beats with brilliance, waiting for those who seek it. The stone giants of San Agustin. High in the misty mountains of southern Colombia, where the rivers twist through deep valleys and the clouds linger low over the ridges, there stands a mystery carved in stone. For centuries, travelers and locals have whispered about them, and archaeologists have scratched their heads in awe and confusion. These are not simple statues. These are enormous figures, some more than 20 feet tall, with faces and forms so striking they seem almost alive. They are the stone giants of San Agustin. What makes these statues so compelling is not just their size, but their enigmatic expressions. Some have human faces, others resemble animals. Some are hybrids, part human, part beast. Arms are crossed, fists clenched, bodies rigid, yet somehow imbued with life. Standing in the open fields and atop ceremonial mounds, they watch silently over a land that has been home to humans for thousands of years. Imagine walking through this highland landscape centuries ago. The air is cool, mist rising from the valley below. Small communities farm maize and tubers on the terraces, people moving carefully across stone paths. And among them, towering stone figures stand sentinel. Who made them? Why? What stories do they tell? No one knows for certain. Unlike the pyramids of Egypt or the temples of Mesopotamia, there are no written records from the San Agustin civilization. The statues themselves are the only storytellers, standing as echoes of a people who left behind no words, only stone. The creation of these giants must have been monumental. Blocks of volcanic stone, some weighing several tons, were carved using stone and bronze tools, no metal chisels, no modern machinery. Each line, each curve, each facial expression was hammered and shaped with incredible skill and patience. Then somehow, the statues were transported across uneven terrain, moved from quarries to ceremonial centers. Why go to such effort? Some archaeologists suggest these figures were guardians, watching over tombs or sacred sites. Others believe they were representations of gods, ancestors, or spirits. Some might have been ceremonial leaders, immortalized in stone for eternity. Perhaps each statue tells a story that is now lost, a myth we may never fully understand. Consider the variety of these giants. Some are seated, hands resting on knees, eyes staring into the distance. Others are standing, arms folded across broad chests, heads tilted in thoughtful poses. Animal figures are carved with astonishing detail: jaguars with open jaws, birds with outstretched wings, serpents coiled around humanoid forms. These combinations suggest a worldview where humans and animals were interconnected, where the spiritual and natural worlds intertwine seamlessly. The placement of the statues adds another layer of mystery. They are arranged along pathways, terraces, and plazas, forming patterns that hint at astronomical alignments or ritualistic practices. Perhaps the positioning was deliberate, designed to mark solstices, equinoxes, or celestial events. Or maybe they were markers of power, each statue asserting authority over a particular hill or river bend. Walking among the statues today, one feels an uncanny sense of presence. Though silent and unmoving, they convey energy, a watchfulness, an intelligence beyond the stone. Some faces appear joyful, others stern, some frightening. It is as if the sculptors imbued their creations with emotion, giving life to inanimate rock. And yet, the origin of the San Agustin civilization itself remains obscure. They existed thousands of years before European contact, creating these monumental works in a time and place where few such achievements were expected. Their cities, ceremonial centers, and tombs speak of an organized society with social structure, religious practice, and an aesthetic sensibility. And then, mysteriously, they vanished, leaving only these stone sentinels behind. Imagine a funeral procession in ancient San Agustin, the air thick with incense and ritual song. Chiefs or priests leading the ceremony, families following. At the edge of the plaza, stone giants tower silently, witnesses to the rites of death and passage. Perhaps offerings are placed at their feet. Food, pottery, small carvings. The statues stand eternal, recording what cannot be written in words. Modern archaeologists continue to study San Agustin, yet frustration is common. We can measure the stones, map their positions, and analyze pigments and tools, but the true meaning, the spiritual and cultural significance remains elusive. The giants do not explain themselves, they do not speak, they wait, and in their waiting, they evoke both awe and humility, a reminder of how much of human history is beyond our understanding. Some theories propose connections with distant cultures, suggesting that ideas about gods, animals, and ritual may have spread across South America. Others insist that San Agustin developed independently, a unique civilization shaped by its landscape, resources, and beliefs. Regardless, the craftsmanship, the scale, and the vision are undeniable. Today, the statues are part of a UNESCO World Heritage Site, protected yet still mysterious. Tourists come, archaeologists study, but even the most learned minds admit that some questions may never be answered. Why did the builders choose these specific forms? What myths did they follow? What ceremonies took place under the shadow of these giants? Perhaps that is their true power, not just their size or skill, but their ability to evoke wonder. They remind us that human creativity is ancient, profound, and sometimes deliberately secretive. That even in a world without written records, culture can speak, survive, and inspire. Picture walking through the terraces at sunset. Long shadows stretch across the earth, and the stone giants cast their forms across the misty hills. A jaguar snarls frozen in stone. A human face gazes far into the distance. The wind whispers through the valleys, carrying the voices of a people who no longer exist, but whose spirit endures. The stone giants of San Agustin are more than statues. They are guardians of memory, keepers of mystery, and witnesses to a vanished civilization. They teach us that history is not only what is written in books, but also what is carved, shaped, and left for future generations to marvel at. And as the clouds settle over the hills, the giants remain, silent, patient, eternal, a bridge between the distant past and the curious present, waiting for those who dare to wander among them, to wonder, and to remember. The Tower of Silence bones. Far in the arid lands of ancient Persia, beyond the bustling cities and fertile valleys, there lies a structure both haunting and reverent. Known as the Tower of Silence, it stands atop a barren hill, overlooking wide plains, under an unrelenting sky. Its stones are weathered, its edges softened by centuries of sun and wind, yet it holds one of the most striking and solemn rituals of human history, the final resting place for the dead, where bones are laid bare to the sky and the elements. Unlike graves or tombs, the Tower of Silence does not seek to hide the dead, it exposes them, not in fear, but in devotion. For the Zoroastrians, who have practiced this ritual for thousands of years, the body is sacred, yet also temporary. Earth, fire, and water are pure, and the decaying corpse is considered impure. Thus the dead were placed in these circular towers, allowing vultures in the sun to reclaim the flesh, leaving behind only the bones, which were later collected and stored in ossuaries. Imagine standing at the edge of one such tower in ancient times. The wind sweeps across the plateau, carrying the dry scent of stone and dust. Below, the circular platforms are empty now, but once they held generations of the faithful. The city beyond hums quietly, the villagers and priests moving with the rhythms of daily life. While above them, the dead rest in a ritual that embraces the natural cycle of life and decay. The bones, once stripped of flesh, are white against the earth. They speak silently of lives once lived. Men who farmed, women who wove, children who laughed and cried, families who celebrated and mourned. And yet, there is no fear here. There is a sense of order, a respect for the process of returning to the elements. Each fragment is a reminder of impermanence, yet also of continuity. The Tower of Silence is circular, symbolizing eternity and the cycle of life. At the center, a small raised platform allows priests to observe, guide, and bless the process. The structure itself is carefully engineered. Sunlight, wind, and gravity all work in harmony to cleanse, preserve, and protect the surrounding land from impurity. It is a monument not to death itself, but to a philosophy that sees death as transformation, not as end. Think of the vultures circling high above, their wings spanning the sky, silhouettes against the blazing sun. To the Zoroastrians, these birds were not scavengers in the negative sense, but agents of purification. They completed the cycle, consuming what the earth could not, allowing bones to remain for collection. Every step of the process was measured, guided by belief, and imbued with meaning. Yet the mystery of the towers remains. To outsiders, they evoke unease and curiosity. Why expose the dead so openly? Why rely on birds and sun to complete the process? The answer lies not in spectacle, but in respect. This was a culture that understood the fragility of life, the inevitability of death, and the necessity of harmony with nature. Every bone, every platform, every ritual action was carefully observed to honor both the living and the departed. Archaeologists who study these sites marvel at their engineering and symbolism. The towers were often placed on elevated land, dry and windswept, ensuring that decay was controlled, disease was minimized, and purity was maintained. Even the bones were eventually collected into stone ossuaries or hidden niches, keeping them close to the community, yet removed from the daily life of the living. Visualize the scene in your mind. The stone circle bathed in sunlight, the shadows stretching across the platforms, the empty spaces filled with memory. Each platform, each niche, is a link in a chain of tradition, a ritual passed down for generations, carefully preserved even as empires rose and fell around them. The bones themselves, though silent, carry stories. They whisper of devotion, of belief, of a people who sought to reconcile life and death with grace and dignity. And yet, there is still an element of mystery. Many towers, over time, have been abandoned, looted, or forgotten. The rituals, once regular and sacred, have ceased in many regions. But the remnants remain, waiting to teach those willing to listen. For the historian, the archaeologist, and the curious wanderer, the towers offer a glimpse into a worldview profoundly different from our own, one where death is not feared, but integrated into the natural order. It is this duality that makes the Towers of Silence so haunting. They are at once stark and gentle, public yet intimate, practical yet spiritual. The bones, white and weathered, are reminders of what was, what remains, and what endures. They speak of a culture that saw life and death as intertwined, inseparable, inevitable. Imagine walking along the edge today, centuries after the towers were built. The wind carries the stories of long-gone priests and villagers. The stones echo with ritual chants that no longer resound aloud, yet linger in spirit. The landscape itself seems to acknowledge their presence, empty, open, eternal. The Tower of Silence bones are more than a ritual. They are a meditation on mortality, a philosophical statement rendered in architecture and nature. Each bone, each platform, each silent shadow, reminds us that even in death, there is order, respect, and meaning. That human understanding of life and the afterlife can take shapes so foreign, yet so profound, that we are humbled by their wisdom. And as the sun dips behind distant mountains, casting long shadows across the barren hilltops, the towers endure, silent, patient, eternal, waiting for those who look closely, listen carefully, and wonder about the lives, the deaths, and the rituals of people who existed thousands of years before our time, leaving behind a legacy written not in words, but in bones and stone. The wooden sunwheel of Trundholm. In the quiet northern lands of Denmark, where the winter winds sweep across endless plains and forests, a remarkable artifact was unearthed, a creation that speaks of humanity's earliest fascination with the cosmos. Known as the wooden sunwheel of Trundholm, or the Trundholm sun chariot, it is a small wooden sculpture, exquisitely crafted, yet powerful enough to hint at the spiritual and astronomical imagination of Bronze Age Europe. The artifact depicts a horse, pulled by a pair of delicate legs, carrying a large circular disc, the sun, mounted on a chariot. Its details are mesmerizing. Spirals etched into the golden disc, careful carving along the horse, wheels precisely turned, all balanced in miniature perfection. But it is not simply a piece of art. It is a symbol, a cosmological model, and a spiritual statement from people who lived more than 3,000 years ago. Imagine the world of the artisans who made it. Open fields, forests and meadows stretching as far as the eye can see, families tending cattle and crops, smoke curling from hearths. And somewhere in this world, a craftsman shapes wood and applies gold leaf, working meticulously with simple tools, yet creating something that captures the heavens. The sun itself, a celestial body that governs the seasons, life, and time, now exists in miniature form, mounted on a chariot pulled across the sky. The artifact is a vision of movement. It is not stationary. It suggests the journey of the sun, rising in the east and setting in the west, marking the passage of time and the rhythm of life. The spirals on the disc are not random. They may represent days, seasons, or cosmic cycles. The artist translates observation into form, abstract but intentional, giving us a glimpse into Bronze Age cosmology. The Trundholm sun chariot is also a window into ritual. Scholars suggest it may have been used in ceremonies to honor the sun, ensuring fertility, prosperity, and balance in the natural world. Perhaps it was carried in processions, set upon altars, or displayed during festivals marking the solstice. Its presence in the archaeological record hints at a society attuned to the cycles of nature, keenly aware of how the heavens influence life below. Consider the journey of the object itself. Buried for centuries under peat and earth, hidden from the elements, it waited silently. The wooden horse and disc preserved by luck, craft, and the careful burial of its people. Rediscovered only in the 20th century, it astonished archaeologists and historians alike. The precision, the artistic sensibility, the knowledge of celestial patterns, all packed into a tiny wooden sculpture. Yet the artifact raises as many questions as it answers. Who exactly made it? How widespread were these sun worship practices? Were similar chariots common across Bronze Age Europe, or unique to this region? We may never know the full story. Unlike civilizations with written records, the people of Trundholm left few words, but this artifact speaks, if we listen carefully. Picture holding the sun chariot in your hands. The wood is light, the gold disc gleams softly. Even without knowing the exact rituals or beliefs, we sense intention and reverence. The chariot encapsulates a worldview, a reverence for the sun, for cycles, for life itself. In a world without clocks or calendars, such symbols guided communities, marking the passage of time and connecting humans to cosmic rhythms. The artifact also hints at movement in art and spirituality. The horse, dynamic and poised, conveys action. The disc, circular and radiant, embodies life-giving energy. It is a representation of motion, of the eternal journey of the sun, of life in constant progression. The creators distilled complex celestial ideas into a single object, small but profound. As modern observers, we are fascinated not only by its beauty, but by its purpose. The Trundholm sun chariot challenges us to think about how ancient humans perceived the universe. They saw patterns, movement, and order. They created objects that mirrored the cosmos, embedding their beliefs into wood, gold, and design. It is a testament to human curiosity, creativity, and devotion, a bridge across millennia, connecting us to people who lived, loved, and marveled at the same sun that rises today. Walking through the fields of Trundholm in your imagination, seeing the horizon stretch endlessly, one can almost envision the Bronze Age people performing rituals at dawn, lifting the chariot toward the sky, celebrating the sun's path, and acknowledging their place within the grand scheme of the cosmos. The artifact reminds us that human fascination with the heavens is timeless, universal, and deeply personal. The wooden sunwheel of Trundholm is small, delicate, yet immense in meaning. Its discovery reminds us that even the simplest object, a wooden horse and sun disk, can carry the weight of spirituality, astronomy, and human imagination across thousands of years. It speaks of reverence, precision, and an unbroken curiosity about the universe that connects us with our distant ancestors. Even today, in the quiet halls of a museum, the sun chariot waits. Visitors gaze, scholars analyze, and yet the object itself seems to hum with its original purpose, a silent testimony to a civilization that looked up at the sky and turned wonder into art, belief, and ritual. The Trundholm sun chariot teaches us that the sun is not just a star, but a symbol of life, time, and eternity. And though the people who created it have vanished, their vision endures, glowing softly through gold, wood, and the imagination of all who encounter it. The hidden tombs of Olmec rulers. Deep in the tropical lowlands of what is now southern Mexico, along the winding rivers and dense forests, lie the remnants of one of the earliest and most enigmatic civilizations of the Americas, the Olmecs. Often called the mother culture of Mesoamerica, their legacy is profound, yet much of it remains hidden, buried beneath centuries of soil, vegetation, and silence. Among their many mysteries are the hidden tombs of Olmec rulers, burial sites that hold both power and secrets, waiting patiently to tell their stories. The Olmecs are perhaps best known for their colossal stone heads, carved with striking precision and individual features. But beyond these monuments lie tombs, carefully constructed to honor rulers and elites, yet shrouded in secrecy. These tombs are not merely graves, they are carefully designed spaces meant to protect, to venerate, and to communicate status and authority. Many remain undiscovered, and those that have been unearthed continue to puzzle archaeologists with their unique layouts, offerings, and symbolism. Imagine the construction of such a tomb. Dense forest surrounds the area. Skilled laborers shape stone and earth with simple tools, carving chambers beneath mounds. Every corner, every recess, is intentional. Artifacts, jade figurines, obsidian blades, and ceramic vessels are placed beside the bodies, each item representing wealth, power, or spiritual protection. The rulers are not simply buried, they are enshrined, their remains preserved as the epicenter of cosmic and social order. The tombs are enigmatic. Some contain single rulers, others include multiple figures, perhaps family members or attendants, interred alongside the leader in eternal service. The walls are decorated with carvings, symbols and motifs that speak to a complex belief system, a worldview that intertwined nature, gods, and power in ways we are still trying to understand. The Olmec's burial practices reveal both sophistication and mystery. Certain tombs include jade masks placed over faces, elaborate jewelry, and ritual items. Others have offerings of food, or miniature figurines, possibly representing deities or protective spirits. Every element of these burials is purposeful, hinting at a culture that revered its leaders, celebrated their lives, and sought to guide them into the afterlife with care and intention. Despite modern excavation efforts, much about these tombs remains unclear. How did the Olmecs transport such massive stone blocks for burial chambers through dense jungle terrain? What exact rituals accompanied interment, and why did they choose certain sites for rulers while leaving others seemingly unmarked? Each discovery raises more questions than it answers, leaving historians both fascinated and frustrated. Consider walking through a newly discovered tomb today. The air is thick and humid, the walls damp but sturdy. Tools and brush sweep away layers of dirt to reveal stone floors, carved niches, and remnants of elaborate ritual. Every artifact tells a story. A ceramic bowl with traces of maize, a jade figurine glinting faintly in the torchlight, a ceremonial mask staring back from centuries ago. You feel the weight of the past pressing gently, silently, reminding you that human life, though fleeting, has always sought meaning, even in death. One of the most captivating aspects of these tombs is the level of secrecy and care taken by the Olmecs. Many tombs were deliberately concealed beneath earth mounds, hidden from rivals, from time, and even from casual observers. It suggests not only reverence for the dead, but also an acute awareness of human nature, the need to protect sacred knowledge and authority, to maintain the mystery and majesty of leadership. Some archaeologists argue that the layout of the tombs reflects broader cosmological beliefs. Chambers may align with cardinal directions, with celestial events, or with the surrounding landscape, connecting rulers to both earth and sky. The dead are placed not just physically, but symbolically within a universe they governed, both in life and death. Picture the ceremonial procession that might have accompanied an Olmec ruler's burial. Priests, attendants, and family members moving silently through dense jungle paths, carrying offerings, chanting prayers, and performing rituals designed to honor and guide the departed. Upon reaching the tomb, the body is laid to rest, adorned in jade and fine garments, with every object in place, every symbol considered. The mound is sealed, the forest slowly reclaiming the site, leaving only whispers of the event for future generations to uncover. Even today, excavation of Olmec tombs is painstaking and challenging. Dense vegetation, shifting soil, and centuries of erosion complicate efforts. And yet, each tomb discovered adds fragments to our understanding of this ancient civilization. The artifacts, the layouts, and the careful burial practices hint at a sophisticated society with social hierarchy, religious belief, and artistic achievement that rivals later Mesoamerican civilizations. The hidden nature of these tombs continues to inspire awe. The Olmecs achieved monumental feats without written language, leaving behind only stone, clay, jade, and mystery. Archaeologists may uncover walls, ceramics, and masks, but the intangible, the meaning, the prayers, the lives behind each burial, remains elusive. Walking through the excavated areas today, one can feel the presence of those long-gone rulers. Their resting places, though silent, speak through the artifacts left behind, telling stories of power, reverence, and ritual. The jungle grows thick around the mounds, the rivers flow past, as they have for millennia, and the tombs endure, patient and watchful, waiting for those who dare to seek, study, and wonder. The hidden tombs of Olmec rulers are more than archaeological sites. They are testimonies to a civilization's values, beliefs, and artistry. They remind us that even without words, humans have always sought to honor life, death, and the mysteries in between. They challenge us to look beyond what is visible, to consider what has been deliberately hidden, and to respect the ingenuity of cultures long vanished but still whispering across time. And as you imagine these tombs, layered with earth and shadow, you feel the weight of history, the patience of the past, and the eternal curiosity that drives us to uncover secrets the Olmecs left behind. The obsidian daggers of Chalcatzingo. In the verdant valleys of Morelos, Mexico, where rivers wind through lush hills and the air carries the scent of earth and foliage, lies the ancient site of Chalcatzingo. Once a center of Olmec-influenced civilization, It holds secrets carved in stone and hidden in shadows. Among them, the obsidian daggers of Chalcatzingo, weapons so sharp and precise that they blur the line between tool, weapon, and sacred object. Obsidian, volcanic glass, is one of the oldest and most revered materials in Mesoamerican societies. Its reflective black surface glimmers in sunlight, and when expertly shaped, it can cut with an almost surgical precision, sharper than steel. But at Chalcatzingo, obsidian was not merely utilitarian. It carried symbolism, ritual, and power. Daggers found here are small yet meticulously crafted, often with elaborate handles, polished edges, and ceremonial designs etched into the blades. Imagine the artisans shaping these daggers thousands of years ago. They knapped the obsidian carefully, flaking it piece by piece, coaxing perfect edges from a material as unforgiving as glass. Hours, perhaps days, were spent transforming raw volcanic shards into instruments capable of both protection and ceremony. These daggers were not simply tools, they were symbols of authority, ritual, and cosmic significance. Archaeologists studying Chalcatzingo note that the daggers were often deposited in sacred spaces, atop altars, within temples, or buried alongside important individuals. Their placement was deliberate. Each dagger was a statement, a bridge between the living and the divine, a reflection of human skill and spiritual devotion. They were objects of utility and reverence, crafted to honor both life and death. The daggers themselves tell stories. Tiny notches along the edges, faint scratches, and polished surfaces reveal repeated use, care, and respect. Some were used in ritual sacrifice, others as ceremonial offerings, and still others possibly as symbols of status or allegiance. Every dagger carries a lineage of hands that held it, shaped it, and understood its weight, its sharpness, and its significance. Consider walking through the temple plazas of Chalcatzingo. The stone carvings, the terraces, the flat platforms, all speak of a civilization attuned to ritual, social hierarchy, and the natural world. Within these sacred spaces, the obsidian daggers rested, gleaming black against stone, reflecting sunlight and casting shadows like silent messengers. The daggers may have been used in ceremonies marking fertility, warfare, or cosmic events, acts that intertwined human life with celestial cycles and spiritual belief. The discovery of these daggers in modern times has fascinated archaeologists. They are among the most skillfully crafted obsidian artifacts found in Mesoamerica, reflecting a deep understanding of material, geometry, and ritual context. The calluses, carvings, and daggers together form a tapestry of culture, belief, and art that hints at knowledge passed down for generations, a wisdom embedded in stone and volcanic glass. Yet, like many ancient artifacts, the daggers hold mysteries that defy easy explanation. Were some daggers primarily ceremonial, never meant to be wielded? Were others status symbols for elites, or sacred instruments for priests? And why were certain blades buried with specific individuals while others remained atop altars? Each discovery invites new questions, leaving modern observers both awed and humbled. Imagine holding one of these daggers. Its weight is delicate, yet it conveys strength. Its polished surface reflects your own face back, connecting past and present in a quiet, almost uncanny way. You feel the hands that made it, the reverence with which it was treated, and the stories of those who used it in life and ritual. It is not merely an object, it is a conversation across time. Chalcatzingo itself amplifies the mystery. Its terraces, carved stelae, and ceremonial mounds create an environment where human ingenuity meets spiritual purpose. The placement of daggers within this environment suggests a cosmology, a worldview where humans, nature, and the divine interacted through carefully choreographed acts. Each dagger is a key to understanding that worldview, a tangible fragment of an intangible belief system. Even today, when archaeologists brush away centuries of dirt and sediment, the obsidian daggers gleam as they once did, silent witnesses to ceremonies, power, and artistry. They remind us that the past was filled with people who saw objects not only as tools but as extensions of spirit, culture, and cosmic order. Walking through the site in your mind, imagine sunlight glinting off the daggers, the wind rustling through the trees, and the echo of chants and rituals long forgotten. Every blade, every notch, every placement tells a story of devotion, skill, and mystery, of a civilization that understood both the practical and the sacred. The obsidian daggers of Chalcatzingo are more than artifacts. They are vessels of knowledge, reflections of human ingenuity, and silent carriers of ritual and authority. They bridge centuries, connecting us to people who understood the power of material, the significance of ceremony, and the artistry inherent in shaping life and belief into form. Even now, as they rest in museums or study collections, they seem to hum softly, reminders of hands that shaped them, rituals that gave them purpose, and a world that, while distant, still speaks to us in the glint of obsidian and the silent precision of a dagger's edge. The masked mummies of the Tarim Basin. Far to the west of China, along the arid expanses of the Taklamakan Desert, lies the Tarim Basin, a land of dunes, ancient oases, and secrets that have waited thousands of years for discovery. Hidden within its shifting sands are the masked mummies of the Tarim Basin. Bodies preserved with remarkable detail, their faces concealed by masks made of wood, leather, or cloth. These are not ordinary burials. They are echoes of a lost civilization, hints of cultures whose identities and customs remain shrouded in mystery. Archaeologists first uncovered these mummies in the early 20th century, and each discovery seemed stranger than the last. Unlike the natural mummification found in wetter climates, the Tarim Basin mummies were preserved by the arid desert air, dry, desiccated, yet astonishingly intact. Skin, hair, clothing, and even intricate textiles survived millennia, offering an unprecedented window into the past. What makes these mummies even more enigmatic are the masks. Some are carved from wood, shaped to replicate human features, while others are molded from leather, adorned with pigment and delicate designs. The masks cover the faces of the deceased, obscuring identity, yet somehow revealing a connection to ritual, belief, and culture. They suggest that the act of masking was not merely decorative, but deeply symbolic, perhaps a means to protect the spirit, guide the dead in the afterlife, or convey status and identity to both the living and the unseen. Imagine the hands that created these masks. Skilled artisans working quietly, shaping wood, sewing leather, and applying pigment, transforming simple materials into objects of spiritual and cultural significance. Every stroke, every curve, and every detail was intentional, designed to honor the deceased and communicate beliefs about life, death, and the journey beyond. The mummies themselves vary in appearance. Some are clothed in wool garments with intricate patterns, others in finely woven linen. Many display European features, long noses, high cheekbones, and deep-set eyes, a fact that has puzzled historians and anthropologists alike. How did these people arrive in the Tarim Basin? What cultures did they belong to? What languages did they speak? These questions remain unanswered, and the masks only deepen the mystery, hiding their faces while revealing a complex cultural practice. Burial sites in the Tarim Basin are often accompanied by grave goods, pottery, tools, ornaments, and textiles. Some masks are brightly painted, others left plain. Scholars speculate that the masks may have served as spiritual intermediaries, connecting the physical body with ancestral spirits or deities. They may have also signified social rank, familial affiliation, or even magical protection against malevolent forces. Archaeological study shows that the Tarim Basin mummies date from around 1800 BCE to 200 CE, spanning centuries of history. This extended timeline demonstrates a long-standing tradition of masked burial practices, hinting at continuity of belief and ritual across generations. Yet, despite their survival, much remains unknown. The precise symbolism of the masks, the rituals performed, and the cultural context of these burials continue to elude modern scholars. Visualize walking through one of these ancient cemeteries today. The desert wind shifts the sand, revealing fragments of wooden masks, shards of pottery, and woolen threads that have survived thousands of years. The mummies lie quietly, their masked faces staring upward, frozen in time, silent witnesses to the passage of centuries. Every mask is a question, every preserved body is a story waiting to be told. The Tarim Basin itself adds to the sense of mystery. Harsh, inhospitable, and vast, it seems an unlikely place for thriving communities. Yet these people not only lived here, but developed complex rituals, artistic traditions, and burial practices that speak to resilience, ingenuity, and spiritual depth. The desert preserved them, but it also isolated them, creating a culture that seems almost suspended in time, untouched by neighboring civilizations for centuries. Some masks feature exaggerated expressions or symbolic motifs. Others are stylized in ways we cannot fully interpret, their meaning lost to the sands of time. Were these masks intended to frighten, protect, or honor? Were they reserved for leaders, shamans, or common citizens? The archaeological record offers clues but no complete answers, leaving us to marvel, speculate, and imagine the lives behind the facades. Holding one of these masks in your mind's eye, you can sense the care, reverence, and intention behind its creation. Every curve of wood or stitch of leather speaks of a culture attuned to death, the afterlife, and the unseen world. The masked mummies are more than relics, they are expressions of belief, artistry, and identity, bridging millennia between the living and the dead. The discovery of these mummies also challenges assumptions about ancient migration, trade, and cultural exchange. Their physical features, combined with the sophistication of their burial practices, suggest connections with distant regions and diverse populations. These people were not isolated. They were part of a wider world of knowledge, ritual, and artistry, yet uniquely adapted to their harsh environment. Even today, researchers debate the meaning of the masks, the identity of the people, and the full story behind their rituals. Every excavation brings new artifacts, fragments of clothing, or preserved textiles, each whispering hints of life and culture long vanished, each deepening our curiosity and wonder. The masked mummies of the Tarim Basin are more than archaeological finds. They are windows into a lost world, into people who thought deeply about death, the soul, and the ways in which the living honor those who have passed. They invite us to consider how we too commemorate life and preserve memory. They remind us that history is not just a series of dates and events, but a tapestry of human experience, belief, and creativity. As you imagine the masked faces staring from beneath the desert sands, remember that every artifact, every mummy, and every mask is a connection across time, a bridge that allows the whispers of the past to reach us, centuries later, in quiet awe and wonder. The painted wooden figurines of Jamon. In the misty forests and river valleys of ancient Japan, long before towering temples and sprawling cities, a culture flourished that left behind some of the most delicate and enigmatic artifacts in human history. The painted wooden figurines of the Jamon period. These small, handcrafted figures, carefully carved from wood and adorned with pigments, are more than objects. They are whispers from a time that predates writing, a glimpse into the spiritual and daily lives of a people whose world is slowly being revealed through archaeology. The Jamon culture, spanning from roughly 14,000 BCE to 300 BCE, is renowned for its pottery, intricate cord-marked designs, and its unique connection to nature. Yet, alongside their ceramic works, these wooden figurines survive as rare, almost fragile testimonies of belief, art, and ritual. Many are painted with red, black, or ochre pigments, creating patterns that suggest symbolic meaning, identity, or storytelling. Imagine the hands of an artisan, centuries ago, selecting the perfect piece of wood, carving it with patient care, and then applying paint with painstaking attention. Every figure is unique. Some are stylized humans, others animals, and some hybrid forms that blur the line between reality and imagination. The paint is often faded now, yet it speaks of a people deeply attuned to symbolism, ritual, and expression. These figurines are rarely found in isolation. Many were unearthed in the foundations of homes, near hearths, or within burial sites. Their placement hints at a purpose far beyond decoration. Some archaeologists suggest they were protective talismans, guardians of households or families, or vessels to carry prayers and intentions. Others propose that the figurines were used in ceremonies, telling stories, or marking important seasonal, spiritual, or social events. Walking through an imagined Jomon settlement, you might see figures lined up along a wooden platform, perhaps beside a fire, their painted surfaces reflecting flickering light. Each face, each posture seems purposeful, a silent observer of the lives unfolding around it. Some figures are anthropomorphic, with exaggerated eyes or mouths, conveying emotions or states of being, while others depict animals with such care that their essence seems captured in miniature. The preservation of these wooden figurines is remarkable, especially in Japan's humid climate. Many survive due to waterlogged soil, anaerobic conditions, or careful burial, making their discovery a delicate process. Archaeologists must work slowly, brushing away centuries of sediment to reveal shapes that are sometimes no larger than a human hand, yet carry the weight of cultural memory and intent. The figurines also speak to the Jomon's relationship with nature. Animal representations, bears, birds, deer, suggest a world in which humans and animals existed in intimate proximity, perhaps forming part of rituals tied to hunting, fertility, or spiritual belief. Hybrid figures combining human and animal traits hint at myth, imagination, and storytelling, blurring the line between reality and legend. Some figurines bear painted patterns on their bodies that may correspond to clothing, tattoos, or ceremonial markings. These details, though subtle, indicate an attention to identity, social roles, or spiritual status. Through these carvings, we see not only artistry, but a complex worldview, a culture that sought to understand existence, connect with the unseen, and honor both the mundane and the sacred. Consider holding one of these figures in your mind. Its smooth wood fits your fingers perfectly. Faint traces of pigment catch the light, offering glimpses into choices made thousands of years ago. Every curve, every mark, was intentional, a decision by someone seeking to communicate across time, to leave a fragment of themselves for those who might one day find it. Excavations reveal that these figurines were often part of broader ritual spaces. Homes and settlements contained multiple figures, sometimes placed in relation to each other, forming patterns that may have held symbolic meaning. While the exact purpose remains elusive, it is clear that they were significant to those who created and used them. A physical expression of belief, memory, and culture. Some of the most fascinating discoveries show figurines with painted faces, large eyes staring outward, or mouths shaped in expressive forms. Others carry abstract symbols, geometric shapes, or linear patterns. The Jomon clearly saw in these objects a means of conveying meaning, encoding ideas that could survive beyond spoken word or fleeting memory. In a sense, these small carved figures are time capsules, vessels carrying human thought, emotion, and ritual across millennia. The painted wooden figurines of Jomon challenge modern perceptions of early human societies. They reveal a culture capable of nuanced expression, symbolic thinking, and artistic sophistication. Unlike monumental stone sculptures or tombs, these figures are intimate, personal, and direct. Objects that could be held, interacted with, and experienced, connecting the living to the spiritual and the imaginative in a tangible way. Even today, museums and collections that house these figurines treat them with reverence. Handling is minimal, lighting controlled, and descriptions carefully considered. Yet, when observed, the figurines continue to speak. They hint at ceremonies we cannot fully reconstruct, beliefs we can only partially understand, and a connection to nature, life, and ritual that resonates even across centuries. As you imagine the Jomon settlements, the flickering firelight, and the painted figures observing human activity, consider the patience, intention, and artistry that went into their creation. These small objects carry the weight of culture, memory, and spiritual thought. They remind us that even in societies without writing, humans found ways to preserve identity, transmit knowledge, and connect with the world beyond the tangible. The painted wooden figurines of Jomon are more than artifacts. They are intimate, enduring witnesses to the lives, beliefs, and creativity of people long gone. They invite us to slow down, observe, and marvel at human ingenuity, imagination, and devotion. They whisper across time, revealing a culture that cherished both the seen and the unseen, the living and the spiritual, and remind us that history is not just what is recorded in books, it is what is felt, observed, and preserved in the smallest of objects. The crystal eyes of Mesopotamian statues. In the fertile plains between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, where rivers meander and ancient cities once thrived, Mesopotamia gave birth to civilizations that shaped the course of human history. Among the ruins of temples, palaces, and public spaces, archaeologists have uncovered a remarkable feature: statues with crystal eyes. These are not ordinary sculptures. They are mysterious, striking, and haunting. Figures in stone whose eyes, crafted from crystal, seem to gaze across millennia, watching, observing, silently witnessing the rise and fall of empires. Mesopotamian artisans were masters of stonework, carving limestone, alabaster, and other materials with astonishing precision. But the addition of crystal to the eyes elevated these statues from artistry to something extraordinary. The crystal, polished and inset into the sockets, catches light in a way that can almost mimic life itself. When sunlight, firelight, or torchlight falls upon them, the eyes glimmer with a spectral presence, creating an uncanny sense of awareness. Imagine the process of creation. A sculptor, centuries ago, carving a seated figure in alabaster, smoothing its surfaces to perfection. Then, carefully selecting a piece of crystal, polishing it until it gleams like water, and setting it into the carved eye sockets. The placement must have been meticulous. One misaligned angle, and the effect would be lost. Yet the Mesopotamians achieved a sense of depth, presence, and even divinity through this precise work. These statues often represented deities, kings, or priests, figures of authority and spiritual significance. The crystal eyes were not mere decoration. They were believed to imbue the statue with a presence, a way for the figure to see into the world, to act as a bridge between humans and gods, between the temporal and the eternal. Some scholars speculate that these statues were ritual focal points, conduits for prayers, offerings, or messages to the divine. Walking through a Mesopotamian temple in your mind, imagine the dim light of clay lamps reflecting off the polished crystal eyes. The statues, seated upon stone platforms or standing guard, appear to track movement, their gaze following worshippers and visitors. There is a sense of reverence, almost awe, in this interplay of light, material, and human perception. It is easy to imagine that the ancient people themselves may have felt the eyes watching them, reminding them of their place in the cosmos and the unseen forces surrounding them. The craftsmanship involved is extraordinary. Each crystal was carefully shaped, sometimes carved with subtle details to resemble an iris or pupil. In some cases, lapis lazuli, carnelian, or other precious materials were also combined with crystal to enhance the effect. The artistry suggests a deep understanding not only of materials but also of psychology, of how light, reflection, and form can evoke a sense of life, presence, and even fear. These statues are found in a variety of contexts. Some were part of grand temple complexes, others placed in private homes or palaces. Their roles were as diverse as they were mysterious: guardians of sacred spaces, embodiments of deities, or symbols of kingship and divine approval. In all cases, the crystal eyes were central. they transformed the statues from static representations into almost living beings, capable of perceiving, judging, or witnessing. Yet despite centuries of study, much about these statues remains unexplained. Why choose crystal specifically? Was it for its reflective quality, its rarity, or its symbolic power? Were the eyes believed to literally hold divine energy, or were they a psychological tool to command respect, awe, or fear among humans? The answers remain elusive, leaving modern observers to marvel, speculate, and imagine. Consider holding one in your mind, a stone figure, polished smooth, seated solemnly, with hands resting upon its knees, its crystal eyes gleaming with a light that seems alive. The air of sanctity, power, and presence emanates from the statue, as if it exists not only in space but in consciousness. To the Mesopotamians, this was not art, it was a living embodiment of belief, a bridge connecting human devotion with divine observation. The crystal eyes of Mesopotamian statues also offer clues about trade, resource acquisition, and technological skill. Crystal was not abundant. Obtaining it, transporting it, and shaping it required knowledge, resources, and skill. Its use in statues indicates a society capable of complex production, organization, and a profound understanding of the materials at its disposal. Even today, when archaeologists uncover these figures, the effect is striking. Centuries of dust, decay, and burial cannot diminish the almost eerie presence created by the crystal eyes. Scholars, visitors, and curators often report a feeling of being observed, a subtle, quiet sensation that lingers in the mind long after leaving the exhibit. These statues continue to communicate across time, offering an intimate connection between the ancient past and the present observer. Walking through the imagined streets and temples of Ur-Tel, Lagash, or Nippur, you might see countless statues with gleaming eyes, each placed deliberately, each holding meaning we can only partially reconstruct. The crystal eyes are silent teachers, reminding us of a civilization that understood the power of perception, symbolism, and the interplay between material and spirit. Ultimately, the crystal eyes of Mesopotamian statues are more than objects. They are windows into a world where humans sought to embody divinity, presence, and authority in stone and crystal. They remind us that the past is filled with ingenuity, belief, and artistic mastery. They challenge us to see, to wonder, and to respect the subtle ways in which ancient peoples communicated across centuries. In every polished crystal, every carved detail, and every silent gaze, there is a story of devotion, skill, and an enduring attempt to connect the mortal with the divine. And even now, thousands of years later, those crystal eyes continue to shine, whispering across time to all who pause, look, and listen. The Iron Age coffin of Hochdorf. Nestled in the rolling landscapes of southwestern Germany, in the heart of the Celtic world of the Iron Age, lies one of archaeology's most captivating discoveries, the coffin of Hochdorf. Unearthed in 1977, this burial site has intrigued scholars, historians, and curious minds alike for decades, revealing a glimpse into the lives, beliefs, and artistry of a culture that thrived over 2,000 years ago. The Hochdorf burial is not a simple grave. Inside a mound covering some 50 meters in diameter, archaeologists uncovered a wooden coffin, exquisitely constructed and carefully placed. Within it lay the remains of a powerful figure, likely a chieftain or elite member of Celtic society. The richness of the burial, the objects included, and the craftsmanship of the coffin all speak of a society with hierarchical structure, wealth, and deep symbolic understanding. Made from oak, carefully carved, and assembled with precision, it shows a mastery of woodworking techniques that rivals what many would expect from far later periods. It was lined with textile and contained personal items, ornate jewelry, drinking vessels, a ceremonial wagon, and weapons, all reflecting the status of the individual within their society. The attention to detail suggests a culture that placed immense value on honor, lineage, and ritual. Imagine the hands that built this coffin, craftsmen, perhaps guided by religious leaders or elders, carefully fitting each plank, reinforcing corners, and ensuring that the final resting place would endure the centuries. The design itself reflects both practicality and symbolic importance. A container for the body, yes, but also a vessel for status, memory, and perhaps passage into the afterlife. Inside, the elite was surrounded by items meant to accompany them beyond death: golden torques, intricate drinking cups, iron weapons, and other artifacts all signaled power and prestige. But it is the coffin itself, its construction, preservation, and the thoughtfulness of its placement that remains the silent marvel. The oak, resistant yet delicate, has survived in part due to burial conditions, providing modern researchers with a tangible connection to an Iron Age world otherwise invisible. Walking through an imagined Hochdorf mound, one can picture the funeral rites. Smoke from ceremonial fires drifts upward as mourners place offerings around the coffin. The elite lies in repose, surrounded by symbols of status and reminders of their earthly achievements. The construction of the coffin is as much an act of ritual as it is of practicality. It embodies respect, reverence, and a bridge between life and the unknown that awaited beyond. The Hochdorf burial also reveals insights into Celtic cosmology and beliefs about death. The inclusion of wagons, for instance, is thought to reflect journeys, both physical and spiritual. In many Iron Age societies, the journey to the afterlife was envisioned as a literal passage, aided by the tools, treasures, and symbols buried alongside the deceased. The coffin becomes not just a container of flesh, but a vessel of memory, status, and spiritual guidance. Archaeologists studying Hochdorf have noted the alignment, orientation, and positioning of the coffin within the mound. Such precision suggests that the burial was ritualized and followed deeply ingrained cultural patterns. Every plank, every item, every placement may have had significance, encoding beliefs, social structures, or even messages to the living who observed or maintained these traditions. Consider the effort and resources that went into this burial. Oak trees were felled, wood transported, and labor organized, all to honor one individual. The wealth reflected in grave goods hints at networks of trade, skilled artisans, and social stratification. Gold, bronze, iron, and textiles all had to be sourced, shaped, and preserved. A monumental task indicative of complex societal structures rarely imagined when thinking of Iron Age Europe. The coffin also teaches us about mortality and memory. It embodies a desire to preserve legacy, to mark an individual's life in a way that extends beyond death. This preoccupation with remembrance is universal, bridging time and culture. By crafting such a resting place, the Celtic elite ensured that their presence, influence, and story would endure, even as centuries passed and the world changed around them. Today, the Hochdorf coffin captivates visitors and scholars alike. The preservation of the wood, combined with the surrounding artifacts, allows us to reconstruct aspects of daily life, social hierarchy, and spiritual practice. Yet, many questions remain. Who was this individual truly? What stories, decisions, or events shaped their life? How were their people's beliefs about life, death, and power encoded in the materials around them? Even as we study the coffin, its silent presence exerts a quiet authority. It reminds us that material culture can speak volumes. A simple plank of oak, a carefully laid grave, a collection of objects can communicate lineage, belief, and artistry across centuries. In this, the Hochdorf coffin becomes more than a burial. It is a conversation with the past, a story in wood, metal, and ritual waiting to be interpreted. The Iron Age coffin of Hochdorf ultimately embodies the interplay between life, death, and memory. It is a tangible testament to human ingenuity, reverence, and the desire to preserve identity beyond the limits of mortality. Each plank, artifact, and placement carries a message about society, belief, and artistry. It challenges modern observers to appreciate the sophistication of cultures often underestimated or overlooked in history books. Through this single remarkable burial, we glimpse a world both foreign and intimately human, a world where power, ritual, and respect shaped not only the lives of the living, but the resting place of the dead. It stands as a silent witness to an era that continues to inspire curiosity, awe, and admiration, a testament to the enduring desire of humans to be remembered, honored, and understood long after they have passed. The hidden library of Herculaneum. Beneath the layers of ash and volcanic debris that once engulfed the town of Herculaneum, near the shadow of Mount Vesuvius, lies a secret that has fascinated scholars for centuries, a library, long thought lost, yet preserved in the strangest of ways. Unlike Pompeii, where streets, homes, and frescoes have been uncovered in broad daylight, the Herculaneum library remains elusive, tucked away in charred scrolls, hiding knowledge from a world eager to read it. In 79 CE, the eruption of Vesuvius buried the town in moments, turning vibrant streets and homes into silent tombs of ash and stone. Buildings were flattened, walls cracked, and lives ended in an instant. Yet, in one villa, something extraordinary survived. Hundreds of papyrus scrolls, carbonized but remarkably intact, resting within shelves and cupboards as if waiting for the future to find them. These scrolls are the only surviving library of the ancient world, a window into thoughts, philosophies, and literature that might otherwise have vanished entirely. The preservation of the scrolls is miraculous. Encased in volcanic ash, shielded from moisture, air, and decay, they endured for nearly 2 millennia. Their brittle surfaces, blackened and delicate, conceal knowledge painstakingly written by scribes long gone. Scholars refer to these texts as the Herculaneum papyri, and while many remain unreadable, technological advances, infrared imaging, 3D scanning, and careful unrolling techniques have begun to reveal their secrets. Consider the hands that once wrote these scrolls, inked letters forming words, sentences, arguments, and reflections. Philosophers, poets, and scholars of the ancient world poured knowledge onto papyrus, unaware that their work would survive a cataclysm that would erase almost everything else around them. Each stroke of the pen carries intention, context, and meaning, frozen now in the fragile charred sheets that await modern interpretation. The library itself, a villa in Herculaneum, speaks volumes about its owners. Likely affluent, educated, and deeply engaged in intellectual pursuits, they amassed works that reflect the philosophical, literary, and rhetorical culture of their time. Epic poetry, philosophical treatises, and perhaps historical accounts lay within, preserved yet inaccessible for centuries. The layout of the villa, the shelving system, and the careful placement of scrolls hint at a society that valued knowledge, order, and the written word as a form of legacy. Walking through the imagined corridors of the villa, one can picture the gentle rustle of papyrus, the quiet whispers of intellectual discourse, and the careful handling of these delicate scrolls. Scholars and scribes must have treated the scrolls with reverence, understanding that they held not just words but insight into human thought, governance, and morality. Yet, even today, the Herculaneum Library challenges our understanding. Carbonization has preserved the scrolls but rendered them extremely fragile. Many are partially unreadable, and some remain mysteries, their contents inaccessible despite modern methods. Techniques such as multispectral imaging and CT scanning offer glimpses, revealing writing that is otherwise invisible, but the work is painstakingly slow. For every sentence uncovered, countless others remain hidden, trapped within charred coils of papyrus. The content of the scrolls is astonishing. Many belong to Epicurean philosophy, offering guidance on ethics, nature, and the pursuit of happiness. Others may contain lost works of poetry, literature, and rhetorical treatises that fill gaps in our understanding of Roman intellectual life. The library is not just a collection of texts, it is a portal into the minds of people who lived, thought, and debated nearly 2,000 years ago. The mystery of Herculaneum extends beyond preservation. How did these scrolls survive the eruption intact, while everything else crumbled? Why have so few texts been fully deciphered? What truths, arguments, and ideas lie trapped within the brittle papyrus, waiting for patient eyes to reveal them? Each unanswered question deepens the allure of the library, transforming it into a silent enigma that stretches across time. Imagine uncovering a scroll, carefully unrolled with delicate tools, revealing blackened letters that slowly make sense under the light of a scholar's lamp. The words echo across centuries, connecting the past to the present. Every letter, every phrase offers a bridge between lives, separated by time, yet linked through human curiosity and expression. Entire civilizations have risen and fallen, and yet sometimes, by chance or fate, a fragment survives. The scrolls are relics of both vulnerability and resilience, carbonized witnesses to the sudden destruction of a town, yet enduring to speak across ages. They challenge us to consider how much of human thought has been lost, and how precious every surviving word truly is. Even now, when scholars labor over the scrolls, the library exerts a quiet presence. The smell of charred papyrus, the sound of gentle handling, the anticipation of discovering a line of thought or a forgotten argument, all create a sense of reverence and awe. The scrolls do not shout, they whisper. They do not demand attention, they wait patiently, inviting those willing to observe, study, and listen. The hidden library of Herculaneum is more than a collection of scrolls, it is a story of preservation, intellect, and human aspiration. It reminds us that knowledge can endure even amidst catastrophe, that the human desire to leave a legacy can transcend death, disaster, and centuries. The charred scrolls, delicate and enigmatic, carry the voices of philosophers, poets, and thinkers into the present, offering lessons, reflections, and mysteries that we are still uncovering today. As we imagine the library, the villa, and the careful handling of each scroll, it becomes clear that history is not only written in monuments or gold, but also in fragile, charred papyrus, silently waiting for eyes to find it. And even after nearly 2,000 years, these scrolls continue to speak, quietly, powerfully, and mysteriously, across the ages. The sunken temples of Heracleion. Off the coast of modern-day Egypt, beneath the calm waves of the Mediterranean, lie the remnants of a city that vanished from the land yet endured beneath the water. Heracleion, the sunken temples. Once a thriving port city and spiritual hub, it was a center of trade, ritual, and culture, where gods were worshipped and merchants navigated waterways lined with statues, shrines, and temples. Today, divers and archaeologists explore what remains, piecing together stories long submerged beneath centuries of sand and silt. Heracleon's story begins with prosperity. Strategically located near the Nile Delta, it served as a crucial gateway for goods, people, and ideas entering Egypt from the Mediterranean. The city was more than a commercial hub, it was a spiritual center. Temples dedicated to gods such as Amun, Osiris, and the city's namesake, Heraklion, dominated the landscape. Pilgrims and citizens alike came to offer prayers, tributes, and sacrifices, leaving behind artifacts that would one day rest silently beneath waves of time. The temples themselves were marvels of architecture and devotion, columns carved with intricate reliefs, statues of gods and pharaohs, and ceremonial altars reflected a society deeply connected to spiritual practice. Each stone told a story of devotion, power, and human aspiration. Priests moved through these halls, performing rituals that guided the spiritual life of the city, mediating between mortal and divine. The temples were more than stone and decoration. They were living centers of culture, spirituality, and community. Yet, by the 8th century CE, the city began to disappear. Natural disasters, earthquakes, rising waters, and soil subsidence slowly claimed Heraklion. Buildings collapsed, streets flooded, and what was once bustling became silent. Centuries passed, and Heraklion became a legend, a city spoken of in whispers. Its temples a story told by historians, yet unseen by the world. The rediscovery of Heraklion in 2000 transformed modern understanding of Egyptian history. Divers and marine archaeologists uncovered monumental statues, inscriptions, and remains of temples preserved under mud and silt. Entire streets, ships, and ceremonial artifacts emerged, offering a rare glimpse into daily life, trade, and religious practice in a city lost to the sea. Every artifact recovered is a testament to human endeavor and resilience, a bridge across time to a civilization that thrived at the confluence of commerce and spirituality. Consider the statues, massive and silent, emerging from murky water. Their faces, expressions, and details convey a sense of power, grace, and presence. Carved to honor gods and leaders, they once dominated city streets, guiding pilgrims and citizens through rituals and ceremonies. Now submerged, they seem almost ghostly, preserving memory in a liminal space between land and sea. The temples themselves reveal architectural mastery. Columns, adorned with reliefs and inscriptions, survive despite centuries underwater. They speak of a society that valued permanence, ritual, and symbolism. Every corner, every carving, every alignment of stone had meaning, some to honor the divine, others to project authority and wealth. The submerged environment, paradoxically, has preserved the temples in ways that centuries on land might have eroded. Water, mud, and silt became protectors, allowing future generations to witness their beauty. Trade and daily life are evident in artifacts found alongside the temples. Coins, pottery, jewelry, and remnants of ships suggest a vibrant, interconnected society. Heraklion was not isolated. It was part of a broader Mediterranean network. Merchants, travelers, and sailors passed through, carrying goods, ideas, and culture. The temples were not only spiritual centers, but markers of a cosmopolitan society, reflecting economic and social complexity that we are only beginning to understand. The mystery of Heraklion is amplified by what is lost. Entire streets, homes, and monuments remain submerged, inaccessible, and partially hidden beneath layers of sediment. Every dive reveals fragments, but the whole city remains enigmatic, offering tantalizing hints without complete understanding. What rituals were performed in these temples? Which gods were venerated more than others? How did the city interact with neighboring ports and cultures? Each question deepens the allure of this sunken world. Imagine moving through the underwater ruins. Sunlight filtering through the water illuminates carvings and statues, while silty sediment drifts gently around the diver. Fish swim among columns, creating a scene where history and nature intertwine. The temples, once centers of life, now serve as quiet witnesses to centuries of transformation, their stories preserved in stone, bronze, and the murky embrace of the sea. Heraklion also challenges perceptions of permanence and fragility. Cities rise and fall, yet the sea can preserve as well as destroy. What was once vibrant, full of sound, ritual, and commerce, became silent and submerged, waiting for rediscovery. The sunken temples remind us that history is never entirely lost, but often hidden in layers, waiting for those patient enough to uncover it. Archaeologists continue to work meticulously, revealing artifacts and structures with careful precision. Every recovered object, from statues to inscriptions, offers insight into ancient Egyptian life, religion, and economy. They navigate fragile ruins, preserving knowledge while respecting the delicate balance between recovery and conservation. The sunken temples are both a treasure and a challenge, demanding expertise, patience, and a reverence for the past. The sunken temples of Heraklion stand as a testament to human achievement, spiritual devotion, and the impermanence of even the most powerful civilizations. From their rise as a hub of trade and worship to their quiet submersion beneath waves, they illustrate the fragility and resilience of human endeavor. Artifacts, statues, and inscriptions convey stories that continue to resonate, offering glimpses of devotion, artistry, and daily life over 2,000 years ago. And so, as we explore Heracleion in imagination, drifting through its underwater streets and temples, it becomes clear that history is never fixed. It is layered, submerged, and waiting. The sunken temples whisper of lives, beliefs, and cultures that existed, vanished, and now speak to us across time. Every carved column, every submerged statue, every fragment of a temple reminds us of the delicate balance between preservation and loss, and of the enduring power of human ingenuity. Heracleion is not just a city lost to the sea, it is a story preserved in silence, waiting for those willing to dive, observe, and listen. The Bronze Age battle helm of Vix. In the rolling hills of eastern France, near the small town of Vix, lies one of Europe's most extraordinary archaeological discoveries, the Bronze Age battle helm of Vix. Unearthed within the famous Vix burial mound, this helm is not merely a piece of armor. It is a symbol of power, prestige, and the intricate artistry of a culture that thrived over 2.5 millennia ago, offering a window into the lives, ceremonies, and social hierarchies of the Celtic elite. The Vix burial, discovered in the mid-20th century, revealed a wealth of artifacts, jewelry, pottery, chariots, and, most strikingly, this bronze helm. Unlike simple functional armor, the Vix helm embodies ceremonial sophistication. It is crafted with care, adorned with intricate designs, and built not only to protect, but to signify authority. The sheer craftsmanship suggests it was worn by a figure of immense importance, perhaps a chieftain, warrior leader, or a person whose position demanded recognition even in death. Imagine the process of creation. Bronze, a mixture of copper and tin, had to be mined, smelted, and forged. Artisans, working with limited tools by modern standards, shaped it into a piece that is both functional and ceremonial. Every curve, every ridge, every decorative motif was intentional. The helmet would have gleamed under sunlight, signaling status, courage, and divine favor to those who witnessed it. It was more than protection, it was a statement, a legacy carved in metal. The burial mound itself amplifies the story. The helm lay alongside a wealth of grave goods, including a monumental bronze crater, golden jewelry, and a chariot that once carried the elite into ceremonies and perhaps battle. This arrangement is deliberate. The helm is not isolated. It is part of a narrative, a curated display of wealth, power, and ritual. Each item conveys identity, influence, and societal structure, allowing modern observers to glimpse the stratified world of the early Celts. Walking through the imagined mound, one might sense the ceremony that accompanied the interment. Perhaps smoke from ritual fires drifted upward, mingling with incense or herbs. Priests or attendants placed each artifact carefully, as though telling a story about the life, achievements, and spiritual significance of the deceased. The bronze helm, heavy yet elegant, was set to guard the individual in the afterlife, a protective and symbolic talisman for the journey beyond. The artistry of the helm also raises questions about technological capability and knowledge transfer. Creating such a piece required mastery of metallurgy, casting techniques, and design principles that are remarkable for the period. Its existence indicates specialized labor, sophisticated workshops, and a society that understood not only how to fight, but how to communicate status, belief, and identity through crafted objects. This helm also invites contemplation about symbolism. The designs etched into its surface, spirals, geometric patterns, and perhaps representations of animals or deities, may carry meanings lost to us. Were they protective symbols? Were they markers of rank? Or did they serve a ceremonial purpose, signaling the wearer's connection to spiritual or cosmic forces? Each line and curve remains an enigma, a silent message encoded in bronze that has persisted across centuries. The Vix helm challenges modern observers to reconsider assumptions about the past. While we often imagine ancient armor as purely functional, this piece demonstrates a sophisticated interplay between utility, status, and ritual. The Celts were not only warriors, they were creators, thinkers, and ritualists who understood the importance of symbolism, legacy, and ceremonial display. The burial also underscores the transience and permanence of human achievement. The chieftain or leader who once wore this helm lived, acted, and governed, yet their presence would fade, leaving only objects to tell their story. Bronze, resilient and enduring, preserves a fragment of identity that stone, wood, and flesh cannot. The helm becomes a voice from the past, speaking of authority, ceremony, and human ingenuity. Even today, as we gaze upon the Vix helm in museums or study photographs, it evokes awe. We see the weight of history, the skill of artisans, and the carefully constructed social worlds of the Bronze Age. Each dent, curve, and patina tells a story of life, death, and remembrance, connecting us across millennia with those who sought to be remembered, to be honored, and to leave a mark on the world. The Bronze Age battle helm of Vix is more than metal, it is a bridge between eras. It invites contemplation of human creativity, social complexity, and ritual practice. Through it, we understand that armor can be art, power can be ceremonial, and death can be honored with extraordinary care and intention. It reminds us that artifacts are not merely objects, but storytellers, whispering secrets of societies that flourished long before our own. Every time the helm catches light, we glimpse a reflection of a life that once commanded respect, led communities, and participated in ceremonies designed to reinforce hierarchy and spiritual belief. Its survival reminds us of the fragility of human memory and the surprising endurance of human craftsmanship, urging us to look closer, to question, and to marvel. The Vix helm ultimately embodies the interplay of power, artistry, and ritual. It preserves not only physical history, but the essence of a culture that understood the symbolic power of objects. It is a testament to human ingenuity, societal structure, and the enduring desire to leave a mark upon the world. And as we linger on its form, imagining hands forging, placing, and venerating it, we are reminded that the past still whispers. Through bronze, through ritual, and through carefully curated artifacts, we are allowed to glimpse a civilization that straddled warfare, ceremony, and art. A civilization whose voice, though silent for centuries, continues to speak to us today. The ancient musical pipes of Nola. In the quiet hills of Campania, Italy, near the modern town of Nola, archaeologists uncovered a set of artifacts that would reshape our understanding of music in the ancient world. The ancient musical pipes of Nola. Unlike mere tools or ceremonial objects, these bronze pipes reveal an intimate connection between craftsmanship, culture, and sound. They tell a story not of conquest or power, but of artistry, ritual, and human expression that transcends centuries. These pipes date back to the Iron Age, carefully crafted from bronze, a metal that resonates when shaped with skill and intention. Each tube is tuned, each length meticulously measured, suggesting a deep understanding of sound, pitch, and musical harmony. They were not toys, they were instruments, created for performance, celebration, and perhaps ritual. Through them, ancient people expressed joy, grief, devotion, and storytelling, emotions preserved now not in words or inscriptions, but in sound that once filled the air. Imagine the hands that shaped these pipes. Bronze heated over fire, hammered, polished, and tuned until the notes were perfect. Artisans of Nola labored patiently, not for immediate recognition, but for generations to come. Music, after all, is ephemeral. It disappears with the final breath or vibration, leaving only memory and impact. These pipes survive as tangible proof of a society that valued sound, ritual, and the beauty of auditory expression as much as architecture, pottery, or sculpture. The archaeological context is equally fascinating. The pipes were discovered within a ceremonial or burial site, alongside other artifacts suggesting a significant social or religious role. Perhaps they were played during rites, festivals, or funerary ceremonies. Perhaps they accompanied dancers, priests, or the community, creating an auditory link between humans and the divine, between the living and the ancestors. Sound in ancient societies was not merely entertainment, it was a bridge. The ancient musical pipes of Nola may have resonated during sacred rituals, summoning protection, celebration, or connection. Each note carried meaning, a language beyond words. The careful crafting and preservation indicate that these sounds mattered, that they were deliberate, structured, and central to the culture that produced them. Consider the music itself, long silenced by time. What melodies did the people of Nola create? Were they joyous tunes celebrating harvest or victory? Were they somber, calling upon gods to guide the dead into the next world? While we may never hear the exact sounds as they once existed, the pipes themselves suggest musical sophistication. Their varying lengths and construction indicate a range of notes, scales, and harmonies, hinting at a knowledge of acoustics and tonal structure. The discovery also invites reflection on the ephemeral nature of culture. Music vanishes the moment it is played, leaving no trace but memory. Yet here, metal preserves it, frozen in form, awaiting human curiosity to uncover its potential. Archaeologists handling these fragile pipes must do so with care, understanding that they are holding not just bronze but the echo of ancient lives, emotions, and artistry. The pipes are also a testament to societal priorities. Not every community invests in art, ritual, or musical instruments. The presence of such sophisticated pipes suggests a society that valued expression, performance, and cultural continuity. They are a reminder that even in times we perceive as primitive, human beings sought beauty, rhythm, and the transcendence that music can provide. It is easy to imagine a gathering in Nola centuries ago. A priest or musician lifts the pipe to their lips, and a clear, resonant note pierces the morning air. Others join in, creating layers of sound that echo across fields, hills, and settlements. Music accompanies work, ceremony, and celebration. It binds communities, evokes emotion, and links humans to something larger than themselves. Even in modern times, the pipes inspire curiosity. Scholars attempt to reconstruct melodies, experimenting with replicas to understand their tonal qualities. Each note produced is a fragile connection across millennia, allowing us to glimpse, if only partially, the auditory world of the ancient Nola people. The ancient musical pipes of Nola also challenge assumptions about innovation and sophistication in early societies. The technical skill required to cast, tune, and assemble these instruments demonstrates a blend of science and art. Metallurgy, acoustics, and design converge to create objects that are simultaneously functional and ceremonial. They reveal a culture that understood both the material and intangible dimensions of life, sound, ritual, and expression. Furthermore, the pipes prompt reflection on preservation. Bronze, resilient yet malleable, survived where organic instruments, reeds, wood, or skin, would have decayed long ago. What music has been lost forever because it was played on materials that could not endure? The pipes of Nola, therefore, act as a rare lens into a sonic past, a preserved fragment of human creativity that defies the erosion of time. The discovery also evokes wonder at the intersections of culture, spirituality, and art. Music, like writing or sculpture, is a method of communication. The pipes demonstrate that ancient societies had both the curiosity and capability to explore this medium, embedding meaning into vibrations that once moved through air and human consciousness. They are more than instruments, they are vessels of cultural memory, carriers of expression that invite us to listen, interpret, and imagine. Every time we examine the Nola pipes, we are reminded of the continuity of human experience. The desire to create, to communicate, to move hearts with sound, transcends time. These artifacts offer a direct connection to those who lived, celebrated, mourned, and expressed themselves in ways that resonate even today. The ancient musical pipes of Nola remain a testament to the sophistication, artistry, and humanity of early societies. They remind us that music is timeless, that art is enduring, and that human expression, even when silenced by centuries, can re-emerge to touch the modern world. These fragile instruments, carefully preserved in bronze, speak quietly but profoundly of lives lived with creativity, devotion, and a yearning to leave a lasting mark upon the world. As we linger on their form and imagine the melodies they once produced, we are drawn into the rhythms, ceremonies, and daily life of ancient Nola. The pipes whisper across centuries, inviting us to hear echoes of a world long past, yet vibrantly alive through human curiosity and imagination.